G'day there guys, perpetually searching for ways to escape reality, back at it again with another episode of r/Am I the A-hole. Now if you love this content like I do, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, get ready for some bloody good content. Posted by user Werben Jager Man Jensen, titled, "Would I be the a-hole if I confronted my downstairs neighbor about a really bad smell coming from their apartment? It's been stinking up my apartment for months, and I just realized where it was coming from today." So for the last couple of months, I've been noticing a funk in my apartment that seemed to show up in the afternoon. I can smell it right now, and the only way I can describe it is like really pungent cooked Brussels sprouts. It's not every day, but it's pretty regular, maybe 5 days out of the week. I've spent the last month being hypervigilant about cleaning because I thought it was something in my apartment. Now that I've disinfected every nook and have been very good about making sure that any possible smell source is eliminated right away, it keeps showing up. Today it was extra strong and just hit me out of nowhere while I was working from home. So I decided the last place it could be is from someone else around me. I took a nap, and as much as I hate to admit this, smelled everyone's doors around me. Nothing on my floor. I went downstairs to the apartment directly below mine and sniffed their front door, and the smell almost made me gag. It's whatever I'm smelling in my apartment, super amplified. Now, what the hell am I supposed to do? It's probably some really nasty cooking, but am I the a-hole if I knock on the door and ask them not to do whatever this stinky crap is? Do I call my landlord and let them deal with it? I'd say you're not the a-hole for doing it. You know, it would take some balls, obviously, to go do that. But if it's affecting your quality of life, I wouldn't want a stink like that my brain would never get used to continually be stinking up my entire life. Like, that's not on. I would say yes, call the landlord to deal with it. I don't think it's something you can particularly take on yourself, but you're not the a-hole for fixing an issue. Update on 16th of the 5th, 11 AM. I woke up at 7 this morning, and the first thing I did was go look for the package. The package is gone, so I assume they're alive. I also stayed up until 1 AM and checked one of their windows. It had a light on when I went to sleep, and it's now off. I don't know. I don't think anyone's dead at this point. Sorry for worrying y'all. Might just be bad cooking. We'll wait to see if the smell comes back this afternoon, or maybe they're hiding a dead body? I mean, it's crazy unlikely, but it's possible, right? Call the landlord when the smell is happening. Let them smell your apartment and make a decision on how to handle it. Have you seen your neighbor in the last few months? Not gonna lie, it sounds like they could have died. The smell is intermittent, so I don't think they're dead. I'm not sure if you've smelled death before, but it's pretty recognizable if you've ever come across a dead animal. Also, with you saying it's mostly in the afternoons, generally that's when it's the hottest, so if it was a corpse, that's probably when it's going to smell more. There could be other factors like, have you noticed more flies, or lack of noise? Is your neighbor elderly? Sorry to be so cynical, it's just with everything going on at the minute, who knows? I'd rather hear your neighbor is just a bad cook who now thinks that you're an asshole than them be dead and you're too polite to notice. I don't even know who lives below me, never seen them before, so I wouldn't recognize them in the building or anything. Your post got me feeling a little weird, and I remembered there was an Amazon delivery package outside of the door when I did my smell check. I went down to the lower floor just now, and the box is still there. If we're on lockdown here in Cali, this person should likely be home, and that's a long time to leave a package out if you're home. I think if it's outside tomorrow afternoon, I'm calling out of concern for the person inside. Obviously in the update that was fixed. You would not be the a-hole. You have a right to enjoy your own space. Part of living in an apartment complex is being aware of strong smells and loud noises that would disrupt others. Every now and then is one thing, but constantly isn't fair. I think your best bet is contacting your landlord or leaving a note before confronting, and if you do confront, I'd suggest staying cordial because I think that gets better results. Either route, you have a right to not smell funk in your apartment. Updates. Would I be the a-hole if I confronted my downstairs neighbor about a weird smell coming from their apartment? So I called my landlord a couple days after the post to advise of the situation to see what could be done about the smell or see if they could look into it. They asked for a description of the smell, the time it happens during the day, where I smell it, asked about a few general conditions in my apartment, and told me they would look into it. The whole thing kind of slipped my mind after that phone call. To be honest, I wasn't super concerned about it being a dead body and thought y'all were crazy. But the smell went away about 3 days later, and I never smelled it again. I've been stressed out and pretty bummed about life in general, so I really didn't give a rat's ass either way what it was. I was just happy it was gone and never bothered to follow up on it. Yesterday, I saw a coroner's office vehicle parked out front of my building, and I had an oh crap moment. I waited until today to call my landlord. I said I was just following up on the smell because I haven't smelled it, and I was also concerned about the coroner's visit yesterday. Landlord couldn't release too much info, but told me that someone had been deceased for some time in one of the units, and that's it. I don't know anyone in my building except for highs and buys, so I don't know who it was, what apartment, or anything, and I don't feel close enough to any of my neighbors to ask around, but damn, that's kind of a bummer. That smell was around for a while. Anyways, kind of a sad update I guess, but you guys were right. Dang. I knew that someone had probably stolen the package that disappeared. Description of the smell as rotting Brussels sprouts cemented it in my head. Thanks for the update, OP. No problem. The smell probably wasn't from the apartment below me. In between the OP and now, I found out who lives below me. It's just a girl who took her package in. We say hi and bye to each other. Unless she was living with a dead body, but she's been around the last couple days and ever since the ordeal, so I doubt it. I took a walk around the building, 4 floors, maybe 12 to 14 units per floor, 2 days ago to see if any apartments seemed to be empty or vacated, and ran across 2 apartments that seemed to be vacated for some time. Nasty windowsills, no furniture. So maybe it was one of those too. They were both 2 floors below me and directly under our apartments. Oh man, if it was that bad at the girl's apartment door, imagine what it was like on the flight below. Major yikes. So if the girl's apartment is the one you smelled the horrible smell outside the door, and you think it was an apartment below her, then what? She was just living with the overwhelming smell of death 10 times worse than you? So bad it was intensely odorous outside her door? Quick question for that girl. What the hell? Maybe she has anosmia, and she isn't there very often, and usually stays at her significant other's place. I hope she's not so excessively polite and afraid of confrontation that she was just miserably putting up with the smell of death all that time. Anosmia is a symptom of COVID-19 and can take quite a while to fade. Imagine if her apartment reeked of death, but it only got bad just after she had the virus. Oh, no, I don't want that thought. No, thank you. Posted by user MyChickenMyRules543. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my sister I think her baby name choice is weird? My sister is in her 3rd trimester of pregnancy, and she's about ready to pop any day now. We're all excited about her new baby. Ever since the pregnancy began, my sister and brother-in-law have kept their name choice a secret from everyone, even their closest friends and family. My sister and I are pretty close. We can be dicks to each other every now and then, but at the end of the day we'd still take a bullet for each other. So last night she decided to share her baby name with me. The name is Portobello, and yes, she did give me permission to share it here, like the mushroom. At first I thought she was joking, but then she started saying how we could just call the kid Bella for short. There's obviously nothing wrong with Bella, but I think naming your kid after a mushroom is weird. I told my sister that she can name her baby whatever she wants, as long as brother-in-law is on board, but she did not take this well. She got really irritated, pointing out how I have my weird obsession with fried chicken. It's kinda true, so why can't she have a weird obsession with her favorite mushroom? I told her she can be obsessed with whatever food she likes, but you don't see me making plans to name my firstborn the Colonel. This just made her explode. I keep telling her the name is fine, and I don't care what the baby is called, as long as she's healthy, but she's insisting I was being an a-hole. Was I though? I don't care what the baby's name is, I'm just excited to be an auntie. Am I the a-hole? I'm gonna go with no, I don't think you're the a-hole for pointing that out. You know, there are some weird names out there, especially Karen. If you name your kid Karen, like in the story yesterday, You know, it's going to have some flack for the kid later on in life. I think everyone accepts that. It's going to turn some eyes. Portobello, that's another one that's going to turn eyes, unfortunately. You know, we can't just hide the truth here. I mean, like, oh, like the mushroom? Cool. All right. Anyway, I think you're not the a-hole for pointing it out. I just don't think you should force your opinion on someone, but you haven't here. Not the a-hole. You didn't even insult the name or tell her not to. You just didn't give the reaction she wanted. She knows it's weird and is deflecting based on that. She's the a-hole for giving her kid a name that could get her bullied. Would get bullied. There's no way that's going to go well. I wonder, will the kids start with jokes about fungi or porta potties? Tough question, I didn't even consider porta potties, but considering they involve poop and pee-pee, I think porta potties would win. It was honestly my first assumption when she said the nickname would be Bella. Like, no, that nickname's gonna be Porter. Oh no. Not the a-hole, but get ready in grade school when everyone starts calling her porta potty. Oh god, I didn't even think of this. I'm a 42-year-old mum, and that's the first thing that popped in my head. Please try very hard to save your niece. I hope she sees this post and all the comments and changes it. The name is terrible. She will be bullied until she turns 18 and changes her name to either Bella or Isabella. My husband had a moment like this when we were trying to have a baby. I had a terrible craving for vanilla Coke. He said he thought I was pregnant and maybe we could give the baby the name Vanilla. I was like, no. How about Vanessa? We would get the reference, but no one else would. He agreed immediately. I think the second he heard himself say it, he knew it was terrible. Just got a little excited. You have to consider the kid's life, not just the stuff you like. I had an argument about that with my older son's father I think you'll appreciate. He wanted to name him Bink, after a character in a book. I tried explaining all the reasons that would be a bad idea, from it being a ridiculous name to no one understanding the reference. I finally got him to back down by saying, how about we name him the Doctor? This was over 20 years ago, and few people in the States knew Doctor Who back then. Updates. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister I think her baby name choice is weird? Hey everyone. My sister asked me to give y'all a quick update on the name of my new niece here. She was born Friday night. After I made my last post, my sister was totally mortified at the prospect of her daughter being called Porta Potty in school, not to mention all the fungus jokes. You guys successfully convinced her, lol. She did some more deliberating with brother-in-law, but she wouldn't give me the new name until after the birth was over. It's totally like her to do that to me. Anyway, in the hospital they announced the new name choice, which is Annabella. It actually works perfectly because both my family and brother-in-laws have a beloved relative named Anna who is no longer with us, and my sister can still call her Bella for short. Thanks so much for your input, everyone. Baby Bella should be coming home sometime today. I can't wait to get to know her. Lol, I will never get over Portobello. Best post I saw. She still wants it to be a nickname, which I'm fine with. I'm looking forward to buying mushroom-themed stuff for her. That does sound like a really cute nickname. It would suck if she ended up hating mushrooms though, or being allergic to them. You should save this thread, print it out for your niece, give it to her when she graduates from high school and tell her, you're welcome. Maybe I will. Thanks for the idea, Lamau. Please do, and post an update of her response in 18 years if you're able to. 18 years from now, am I the a-hole for telling my niece about the awful name she was almost given? Posted by user, Am I the a-hole wedding dress Q? Titled, Am I the a-hole for cutting up and altering my wedding dress into a functional dress instead of giving it to my sister who can't afford an expensive dress? I need an unbiased opinion on this because I don't know if I was the a-hole. Throw away because I'm an active in other communities and I don't want this to mix. So I was supposed to get married 2 months ago to my ex-partner of 5 years. Sadly, we broke it off because he cheated on me on his bachelor party with a stripper. I had this beautiful dress that cost me around $2,000 out of my pocket. I had been very depressed since everything happened because I felt it was somehow my fault for not being sexy enough or not giving him what he wanted. So last weekend, I decided to take my power back, and I began altering the dress. I've been sewing for 15 plus years, so I know what I'm doing. I cut a bit, changed the color to something a bit less wedding-y, and after a week of work, I had a beautiful gown that I could use for more stuff. The problem comes now. I uploaded that picture of the dress to Instagram with a caption that said something along the lines of, "You can change the worst memories," or some crap like that. My sister hits me up and asks me if that was my old wedding dress, and I told her yes. She then called me and asked me why I had done this. I asked her why it was such a big deal, and she told me that I could have waited till after her wedding. I was so confused. Then she reminded me that when we were staying at the hotel where my wedding was supposed to happen, my mum and sister were there cheering me up, and my sister said something along the lines of, "Oh, well, if you're not using it, I will." We all laughed, so I thought it was a joke, because it was never brought up again after. She just asked me once what material it was, so I assumed she wanted something similar. Now my sister is mad at me, and my mum says she understands our point of views, but that I could have waited 5 more months until after her wedding to take my power back. Am I the a-hole? I don't see how you're the a-hole for that. Your husband cheated on you, so, you want to get rid of that memory. You want to change it into something that is positive for you. And the sister didn't bring it up. It's on her that she didn't formally ask you and say, "Hey, I was serious about that. I really do want to use the wedding. I'm strapped for cash. I love your dress, and it would be a great use for it." That didn't happen. The sister just assumed. And what happens when we assume, kids? And that's what happened. OP is not the a-hole in this situation. Edit. Yes, he screwed the stripper. Please stop asking me. Edit 2. What the hell is wrong with some of you? Suddenly, I'm the a-hole for leaving my ex for cheating on me because it doesn't count because it was his bachelor party? Do you know how relationships work? Are you also going to tell me that if he cheated on a Saturday, that it wouldn't count? Or if he left the country? This is hilarious coming from a sub that says cheaters are the worst people in this world. Cheating is cheating, period. Not the a-hole. I think it's pretty insensitive for your sister to expect to use your wedding dress. She needs to consider how painful it would probably be for you to sit at her wedding and watch her walk down the aisle in the dress you were supposed to wear for your wedding, which then turned into a terrible memory. You do what's best for you, and you should feel proud of yourself for reclaiming your power and turning the dress into something new and positive for you. Honestly, I think I would have felt like that, and I know it's stupid because it's just a dress, but I don't know if I would have given it to her for that, and I feel horrible. But it's not stupid at all, and you shouldn't invalidate your own feelings. I think it would be way more surprising if you didn't feel that way about it. I think even the most cynical, "the wedding industry is a scam bride," would be upset about their sister walking down the aisle in the dress under these circumstances. And as much as it sucks to plan a wedding on a budget, it was crazy insensitive of her to ask to use it the day of, apparently sincerely, and then follow up and then be angry at you. If you're feeling forgiving or otherwise unconditionally supportive, could she wear the dress as it is? You're obviously under no obligation to offer, it's just a thought. If it's altered enough and the color is changed just enough out of the range of wedding colors, her sister probably wouldn't want it anyway. It seems the changes are what bothered her, and she didn't want it anymore because of that, based on her reaction at least. Update. Am I the a-hole for cutting up and altering my wedding dress into a functional dress instead of giving it to my sister who can't afford it? I posted approximately 5 months ago about my sister being mad at me for not giving her what was supposed to be my wedding dress. So after being assured that I did nothing wrong, I decided to try to talk it out with my sister. So I tried calling her, but she had blocked my number. I was very confused and talked to my mother. She was trying to still stay out of it, and I got a little mad and said that it was not fair, that my sister was not right because she never formally asked me, and how was I supposed to just guess that she wanted it? She tried to justify her, but in the end also accepted that my sister was wrong. Nonetheless, she told me to just give her space and that she will come to terms with it herself. I waited a few days till I met her in the supermarket. At first, she tried to act like she didn't see me, but I planted myself in front of her. She was just rolling her eyes, saying she had places to be. And I just said, I hope you noticed how unfair you're treating me, and then left her alone. That night, I received a call where I was berated for being selfish for about 20 minutes by her. I asked her if she was done, and asked her if we could talk it out like adults. She came over the next night, and we had an exhausting fight. Screaming, crying, and after all was said and done, she actually apologized for everything. She was kind of jealous of my dress and of the wedding that I almost had, and she was embarrassed that she couldn't afford everything I could, and that she felt like she failed as an adult and as a mother. And honestly, I get it. Not because I think she's a failure, but because I get how it feels if your brain tells you you failed at life because you don't have things that other people have. She apologized also because she was trying to blame me for her problems, and that everything was easier if she wasn't the one to blame. We talked a lot more time till I told her that she didn't need a fancy dress, and that we could search something basic, and I could help her to decorate it with something. She agreed, and we actually did get to customize a very basic gown. As we didn't have much time, it's not super fancy. Sadly, due to the outbreak, the wedding that was supposed to happen this month was cancelled. They had a courthouse wedding where she wore one of my dresses, and she is celebrating in August if it's possible. That's everything. So even if I was not an a-hole and my sister seemed like a brat, she was dealing with some heavy feelings and I still love her. Thanks for the judgment and advice. I remember the original post. It's always good to read a follow-up where people work it out in the end. Thanks for updating us. I remember it too. I often see updates and I'm like, what was this? But I genuinely remembered this one. 5 months ago, a lot simpler time. Cool, the update's very appreciated. I remember the original as well. I love it when adults can get together and have a talk face to face. There's so much miscommunication and so much stuff bottled up. It's great when you can just hash it out. You sound like you have a great relationship with your sister, and I'm a little jealous, and you guys are moving ahead. Thanks for the good feels. In this case, it was more of one person being an adult and showing their sibling how to be an adult. Kudos to OP for showing such an exceptional maturity. Yeah, I would be pretty disappointed if my sibling called me selfish for acting like I owned my own wedding dress and focused on that instead of the fact that I lost my partner and all the future plans we had. OP was mature, empathetic, and supportive after taking on board a whole lot of angst that didn't belong to her. That's character. Posted by user Sarah the Ferrast, titled, "Am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend I don't want her to move in?" So me and my girlfriend have been dating for about 2 years now. We're both in our mid-20s. Recently, she asked to move in and I said no. We've now had multiple arguments over why I don't want her living with me. I'm not ready to completely share my personal space with another person, I've never had a roommate in my life, I'm an only child, and my parents were pretty much never home. They both travel a lot for work. Once I turned 13, they pretty much never came home, except for holidays and birthdays. She keeps telling me it's been 2 years and I shouldn't be scared of her moving in, and how it's a bit belittling to feel like I don't love her enough to let her move in. She also doesn't have a key either, by the way. She has a set of toiletries and some clothes at my house, but that's about it. My mum even agrees with my girlfriend and is calling me ridiculous for being so hung up over it. So anyways, am I the a-hole? I'm gonna say no. If you still need time, that's completely acceptable. Everyone has different times when they're happy to have someone move into their life. Move in with them, it's a huge commitment, and a lot does change, as we've seen, when people move into apartments together, into houses together. You get to see what they're like living with them, which is completely different to dating them in a lot of circumstances. So, she'll see some things about you, you'll see some things about her, and that's acceptable and it's okay to wait. So I don't think you're the a-hole in this situation. No one's an a-hole here. You're entitled to whatever lifestyle you choose. But this is also a reflection of commitment issues. Your girlfriend probably feels like you aren't serious about her, and you should acknowledge that choosing this is always going to drive a wedge between you two, so be prepared for a breakup. I agree that it is about commitment level rather than a space issue. When you love someone and want to see if marriage is a possibility, then moving in is a good way to express this. But there are also people who realize that they don't want to be in a relationship and make an additional commitment at these pivotal points, and that is fine. If they were both on the same page, then they would both want to move in together. It is also possible that OP and the girlfriend have different love languages, comparability, etc. I'm guessing that's compatibility. My point is that the only way either ends up the a-hole here is if either one compromises beyond where they're comfortable and comes to resent the other for it. No one's an a-hole here. You're perfectly within your rights to not want her to move in, but she's not out of line for wanting to move in after 2 years. Ideally, she shouldn't have asked you about it multiple times, but I'm assuming she's doing that instead of breaking up with you. Do you ever see a point where you would be comfortable with her moving in, or would you rather your preference be living apart for the duration of your relationship? OP didn't reply, unfortunately. Ordinary Quiet 4 says, if this was a few months into a relationship, your reasoning would make sense. But you've been in a relationship for 2 years, and the fact you've not given her a key, assuming you have a key to her place, is really strange. So I would say you're the a-hole, especially if you want to have a lifelong relationship with her. Update: am I the a-hole for telling my girlfriend I don't want her to move in? So I took my girlfriend to my therapy session last week, and we actually talked about moving in together. Her lease ends at the end of next month, and then we'll buy a house together. For now, we both have keys to each other's places, and we're spending the next few weekends over. She's happy we're finally moving in, and I'm not as terrified as I thought I'd be. But it's been fairly easy so far, and I still have my studio if I need space. It's actually pretty great having her so close, honestly. She'll move into my place until we find a house, so she isn't having to stay at a hotel or anything. I'm actually pretty excited to look at houses. I've never really had a traditional house hunting experience, so that'll be fun. I guess I'm more excited to do those things than actually live in the new house, but it's still progress. It's not as terrifying as I envisioned living with her would be, and it's nice to have her there. I do still prefer being in my own bed though. Sorry, she's literally a human furnace even when we're not having sex, and I don't like sweating while sleeping. I honestly thought that was just a sex thing. Nope, she is just 1,000,000,000 degrees anyway. We have some contentious comments here. Cauldron Fire says, you are just going to screw yourself. Do not ever buy a house with someone you are not married to. You say you are a person of extremes. Does an extreme breakup sound good to you? You can do what you want, but this is utterly stupid. I hope you're a troll, because an actual human being jumping like this, hiding his problems, and walking into bad decisions like this is hard to read. Are you sure it's the wisest to jump from not wanting to live with her to buying a house together? Maybe try living for a while first, for more than just a house hunting process. It's your life though. No, I don't. But I don't know anything other than extremes. There's no middle ground with me. Everything is either 0 or 100. Oh, okay, OP. Best of luck to you. I guess we'll see where that one goes in a few months maybe. Am I the a-hole for kicking my ex-girlfriend and her kids out without warning? My ex-girlfriend and I, both 27, broke up in January after a 3-year-long relationship. She had 3 kids from a previous relationship, but I never took a fatherly role over them as their dad is still really present in their lives. I didn't speak to them much, even though they all moved in with me about 6 months after my ex and I started dating. After we broke up, we decided that until my ex could find somewhere permanent to stay, she'd stay at the apartment, which is just as awkward as it is. I hardly like her kids as it is, and now I have no obligation to them. I don't like them living in my house. I tried to push them out, and then COVID hit and I couldn't. In April, I met a new girl and we started dating. I've been considering asking her to move in with me, but I obviously can't do that when I have my ex living in my home. I can't even bring her round because of the whole situation. I brought this up to my ex and she just laughed and said it was tough, which ticked me off. I told her and the kids to get out and packed their bags quickly for them. I know she's okay because her best friend took her in, so I don't think I'm in the wrong, but she's considering getting the police involved, which is insane to me. Am I the a-hole? Man, I feel like we're missing so many more details here. We're just getting a brief rundown of the situation, and I'm inclined to just say that this is terrible. Everyone sucks, but it's leaning more so on you sucking, but I can understand, OP. This is so messy. Oh my god, it's like watching a dumpster fire. I can't take my eyes away. I'm just gonna say everyone sucks and leave it at that. Everyone sucks here. Your ex had no intention of moving out by the sounds of it. 5 months and no talk of moving. You suck because kicking her out like that is almost definitely illegal. You should have looked into the laws in your area for eviction procedures. And don't get in a relationship with someone who has kids if you don't like kids. Also, why are you rushing these relationships? Your ex moved in after 6 months. You want to move this new girl in what, 2 months? I was gonna say exactly this. She sucks for not actively trying to find other accommodations after the breakup. And in my opinion, she also sucks for uprooting her kids to live with some dude after a few months of dating. You suck for kicking them out in 1 day. After all, it was the middle of a pandemic, and it sounds like this was their home for 2.5 years. You don't just get to throw them all out of their own home in 1 day because you want to bring in a new woman. And what's going on with your relationships? A woman with 3 kids that you don't like moves in after only 6 months of dating, and now you're already in a new relationship wanting her to move in after what seems like less than 2 months, while woman number 1 hasn't even left yet. When you move that quickly, you end up in these types of situations right here. How do you even know that you really like this person enough to commit to living with them? Or are you just going to pack her bags up in a few weeks too, and then a few weeks after that, another one? That sounds unhealthy to me. You're the a-hole. She could pursue legal recourse because of the illegal eviction, but I see a bigger problem here, which is you seem to be inviting people you barely know and just started dating to move in with you. Don't assume it is an illegal eviction. There are often exemptions in state rules for people in romantic relationships as opposed to the standard landlord-tenant relationship. And when they decided to continue cohabitation after breaking up, OP said goodbye to those potential exceptions. From the sounds of it, he told them to move out 5 months ago and was patient until she started being a duck about it. I'm not a lawyer or anything, so I don't know, but I think that someone saying, "I need more time before I move," and you allowing that for a while until you finally say no, get out, isn't illegal. At least it shouldn't be. I mean, yeah, he's an a-hole for the way he treated the kids and moving in with people so fast in relationships, but on the part he asked about, telling them to move out, I'd say he's not. Just my opinion. I understand where other people are coming from on this one. Posted by user Slightly Silly, titled, "Am I the a-hole for deliberately getting a nurse fired?" I'm a nanny for 2 boys, aged 9 and 6. A week or 2 ago, they were cranky with each other all day, just arguing and screwing around constantly. This happens sometimes, no big deal, but the 9-year-old snapped at his brother. "Yeah? Well, you ate your brother when you were in Mum's belly." It was such an incredibly dark and shocking thing for him to say. I immediately separated them, told the younger one his brother should not have said that, and it absolutely isn't true. I put the older brother in timeout, and then sat and asked him why he said that to his brother. "It's true, Miss Dana told me." Dana is a neighbor, and also happened to be their mother's prenatal nurse. I asked exactly what Dana had said, and he replied, "She said that's why brother is so slow, because he had a twin, but he ate him when they were in Mum's belly. That's why I don't have 2 brothers instead of 1. I immediately shut it down and told him that Miss Dana should not have said that to him, and he shouldn't tell his brother anything that she said. I explained that babies don't eat other babies in the womb, and it was a terrible thing for her to say. I spoke to their mother about it, and she was hurt, but honestly not surprised. She told me she knew Dana had a drinking problem, and probably just mentioned something while intoxicated. My eyes are getting wider by the minute reading this. She also said, however, that the information Dana spread was partially true. There was a twin, and the twin did die in utero. There is no way the 9-year-old could have known this without Dana saying something. His mother has never told either of the boys about it. She's my boss, and these are her kids, so I wanted her to decide how to proceed, but then she warned me to not report Dana to the hospital. She said it would cause problems for her socially in the neighborhood, and since Dana's husband works for their HOA, oh god, he could make their lives miserable with yard regulations and such if she found out who reported her. Dear lord, it's a double whammy. What is he going to do next? Cut down the tree and we're going to get some tree law? I ended up calling and reporting Dana anyway. It's a huge violation of HIPAA, and who knows what other vulnerable women she's exposing. If she's willing to get drunk and tell a 9-year-old that his brother cannibalized his twin in the womb, what the hell isn't she willing to do? I'm sure Dana will be fired over this, and I do feel guilty for going against my boss's wishes, but I felt it way beyond just her. Am I the a-hole? Oh my god, this is so loaded. I'm going to say personally, this is my take on it. I think they're not the a-hole. I think that's really messed up to tell a kid. I think you should report someone for that. I know a lot of people are going to be like, what? No, you don't just get someone fired from their job. Bruh, you broke HIPAA. You can't break HIPAA. You know how much trouble you're going to get in for that? And you deserve it for breaking HIPAA to a kid. Get your drinking problem sorted out. I'm going to say not the a-hole. Edit. Thanks for all the replies. Unfortunately, they seem to be just as divided as I feel. I appreciate everyone's input. For the record, I expect repercussions at my job over this and expect to be terminated because of the report I made. I knew that going into it and am totally fine with that. I just wanted to do what seemed to be the morally correct thing, regardless. After much debate, I think I have to go everyone sucks here. Dana for possible HIPAA violations and for being intoxicated and alone with a child? What? Mum for not wanting to report for real but crappy reasons? You for going behind Mum's back on the word of a 9-year-old when I'm not even sure your complaint actually follows reporting guidelines, as you have no idea and no way to know when Dana may have actually talked to 9-year-old. Reports must occur within a 180-day period, and while it's likely a 9-year-old wouldn't hold on to that info for longer than that, this info is just weird enough that who knows. If you haven't already, I do think you need to fess up to Mum and give her a heads up. However, if you're correct that Dana is violating HIPAA, then you did overall do the right thing, and I think you can wear your a-hole badge with pride, even if it's with another employer. Little kids love ammunition and hate secrets. There is no way he would have held on to that for 5 months. My experience with my little brother says he probably heard it in the past few weeks. However, I super agree that everyone sucks here except the mum, kind of. Neighbors can be so petty, and it'll definitely come back to bite her if people find it out due to the HOA husband. OP's boss probably doesn't want the trouble, but if Dana is violating HIPAA laws, and then her husband who is on the board retaliates against her, the HOA and Dana and her husband could be sued big time. This is just a room of people with 2 pistols in each hand pointing at everyone, being like, who's going to make the first move? Who's going to do what? Who's going to court first? I'm going to be honest here. Regardless of whether or not this person was in violation of the rules, is irrelevant to whether or not OP is an a-hole. The fact that they made the report without knowing the rules, and on the words of her 9-year-old, makes her an a-hole. This subreddit has a really strange morality compass, whereby people seem to be absolved if things work out in the end, regardless of their intentions. If you were beating the crap out of someone on the vague suspicion that they might have stolen something from you, and you end up being correct, you're absolutely still the a-hole for doing it, you just got lucky that you were right. Seriously, I need to constantly remind myself that Reddit morality is absolutely not congruent with real-world morality. Why is making a report without knowing the rules a problem? That makes no sense. It's the nurse's boss's job to investigate possible HIPAA violations and determine whether any rules were violated. Laymen aren't expected to know all the rules. That's exactly why there is a reporting and investigation process. I'm not gonna lie, looking at more comments just in reply to that one, this is a dumpster fire itself. People are not happy about Reddit's moral compass being called out, that's for sure. Not the a-hole. As someone in the healthcare field, this is indeed a major violation of HIPAA laws. She needs to be reported to protect the integrity of her position and protect her other patients. However, please do tell your boss about what you did. She deserves to know. I agree with this, and honestly can't believe the upvotes on other replies. This is a huge violation of HIPAA. It doesn't matter that the mum asked her not to spill the beans. Her social life is not worth as much as the medical and human rights of every other patient this nurse has taken care of. Posted by user Jody Veroma, titled, "Am I the a-hole for trying to outdo my roommate whenever she has sex?" Oh my god. I've been living with my roommate for about 2 years now. We have a really nice arrangement and get on well. When we both moved in, we both had boyfriends. She broke up with hers soon after, and I'm still with mine. Initially when we moved in, we had an agreement that we'd only have sex if the other one wasn't home, as to avoid any awkward viewing parties or conversations. And this happened up until my roommate became the village bicycle. Oh my god! She started bringing guys back to our apartment literally every weekend, bringing them into our space and making me super uncomfortable. She then started having extremely loud sex to the point our neighbors could hear and made complaints, but that didn't stop her. So my reply is, I'm gonna have louder sex. That'll solve the problem. Then, as a way to get her to realize how loud she was being, I started initiating sex with my boyfriend whenever he was at the apartment and she happened to have a guy back. At first, it made my boyfriend uncomfortable that we could both hear each other, but went along with it. I try to be loud and irritating during it so she can get the hint, which pees my boyfriend off. Last night it happened, but for the first time in a while due to lockdown restrictions, I tried initiating sex with my boyfriend, but he instead pushed me back onto the bed and told me to get off him, as I only want sex with him when it's to pee off my roommate. And he then went and told my roommate that I was insecure, and that's why I always had sex when she did. My boyfriend and I aren't speaking, nor are my roommate and I. Am I the a-hole? What do you even say to this? Oh my god. Is this even real life? Am I reading this right? Why was that your solution? Why did you choose that you're just going to outclass someone that's intentionally doing this? Opie, what's wrong with you? Everyone sucks here in this situation. I don't know why that was the answer. You're so stupid for thinking that that will solve the problem. Why? I just want to know why, OP. Everyone sucks. I tried looking for responses. I couldn't find any because their account got suspended. I wonder why. Everyone sucks here except for your boyfriend. Telling the roommate that she's insecure doesn't excuse him. Totally agree, he should not have gone to the roommate and said that she was insecure, though I can kind of see how he would start viewing her that way. Why screw with your own relationship in the process, OP? You were aware your boyfriend was uncomfortable and annoyed with what you were doing, yet you continued? He must have felt pretty crappy knowing that you kept initiating intimacy with him just so roommate would maybe get the hint? Did you ever once use your words and actually talk to her about the issue? Everyone sucks here. You're the a-hole. You're basically using your boyfriend as a sex doll in some petty-ass pissing contest between you and your roommate. You are very much the a-hole. Yeah, that would really hurt me. Sex is supposed to be a lovely thing when you're in a loving relationship, and she used him for petty reasons. Ugh, I'd be out. This is literally the scene from Forgetting Sarah Marshall. That's all I could think as I was reading this. Another fake AmiTheA post? Shocking. I'm gonna have to watch that movie now. Posted by user Screw Ukrainians? What did they ever do? Titled, Am I the a-hole for outing my cousin as gay? My cousin Sally, 24, is getting married soon, and my cousin Megan is gay. Australians say Megan. I know everyone else says Megan. Australia's a weird country. All of the other cousins know this, and I'm sure some adults do too. My family is open-minded, like we're mostly all libertarians I guess, so nobody gives a crap what other people do, and Megan is planning on hijacking Sally's wedding to come out as gay there, and post it on TikTok for views. I told her that doing that is very selfish and a dick move, and Sally's wedding is about Sally and her husband, not for you to announce you're gay. She told me to pee off and let her dream. She wants to come out and to have everyone congratulate her for her bravery and crap. I told her nobody's gonna care, and they'll just be like, aight, cool, be yourself. She kept planning this, and after a couple of weeks, I knew this was serious, and she was going to hijack Sally's wedding. So at a different family event, I basically told everyone Megan was gay, and as I expected, nobody gave a crap. They were just like, alright, cool, we still love you. Megan later cried and said I ruined her special moment of coming out, and I'm such an a-hole. To me, coming out is stupid. Gay people shouldn't be treated any differently than straight people, and I don't actually care when some celebrity or someone tells me they're gay. OP, you're entitled to your opinion for sure, but Jesus, how tone deaf can you be? I understand what you're trying to say. I understand it doesn't mean I accept that. That's a really stupid way of putting it, and I feel like you're very ignorant. Come on. I feel like there were better ways to handle this than to just scream it out in front of everyone. You feel like you can know a 14-year-old, but you don't. You're not them. You don't know how much this is going to affect her. There's so many things in this that I can't even comprehend myself. I think that everyone does suck here in this situation. The 14-year-old definitely should not be trying to destroy a wedding. But she's 14. I don't think she completely grasps just how important the wedding is, because not everyone does at that age. So everyone sucks here. I'm just going to leave it at that. Everyone sucks here. Obviously, Megan sucks for planning to ruin Sally's wedding and make it about her, but it wasn't your place to out her to the family. I think you should have just told Sally she was planning to hijack her wedding to make a personal statement and let Sally confront Megan herself. Couldn't have said it any better, and before OP asks, yes, it's important for someone to come out to the world as who they are, because unfortunately, we don't live in a world where people can be open about their sexuality and no one will bat an eye. But announcing it at someone else's wedding is not the time to do it. Neither is hijacking someone's announcement. OP, exactly this. Thank you for attempting to stand with the LGBT community, but coming out has to be on that person's terms. Not saying they were right to hijack someone else's wedding for it, but we still live in a world where if you're gay or trans or whatever, and live in the wrong country, then it's illegal to execute them or stone them to death on the streets. And even in first world countries, people get disowned by family every day for not wanting to repress who they are anymore. Personally, I'm transgender, and every time there are meetings for trans people here by the LGBT community, there's always at least one person there that has to hide it from their parents, or whose parents think it's just a phase, or anything along those lines. I agree that it is stupid that coming out as LGBT can't be as simple as, by the way, I hope you don't mind, but I'm gay. Okay, cool, so what are we having for dinner? But that just isn't possible in this day and age, and while I am thankful that your family accepted her for being gay, there was always that slight chance that your trust in them being accepting was wrong, and they wouldn't. If all of them hadn't accepted it and shunned her out of the room with a screaming contest, would you still feel justified in outing her? Everyone sucks here. I think, yeah, that goes back to that comment that got a lot of flack in the other one. Just because something does go right doesn't mean it reverses the decision in the end. You just got lucky. And I think OP got lucky in this situation. Posted by user Sunflower Better. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my sister to get over her stillbirth and be grateful for what she has? Oh boy. Some people just say the darndest things, don't they? My sister and I have never gotten on that well. We're only 10 months apart, so struggle to have our own identities outside of each other. When she was 19, she got pregnant and started her family with her now husband. She had 3 kids, and then tried for a 4th, which was stillborn with no warning. Understandably, she was devastated, but this was 10 years ago now, and she's had 2 children since. Damn, she's got 5 kids. That's a lot. She's always used it as an excuse for things. If she wants a bit of attention from our parents, she brings it up and they're straight there. If she's late to a family gathering, "Oh, sorry, I'm late, we were visiting the baby's grave." "Oh, I'm sorry I'm late, I'm just sad about baby." And I do understand it, but I was told at 14 that I'm infertile, so for her to be like that when she has 5 healthy children always feels like a massive kick in the teeth. A few nights ago, her and her family came over to my husband and I's house, as well as our parents and other sister, who's a few years older than us. The anniversary of her stillbirth was the day before, so I was expecting it to be brought up at some point. I asked her to help me cook dinner, and when she brought a tray out of the oven, she didn't look where she was going and burnt me on the arm. Her excuse was that she was thinking about the baby that should have been 10 years old today. I tried to push it out of my mind to keep the peace. It gets to eating our dinner, and it's all her and her husband are talking about. I asked about how her actual living kids are doing, and she brought it back to her stillbirth. I asked her how her job was going, and she somehow managed to bring it back. I was getting absolutely sick of it, so I just said, "Do you not think it's time you should be grateful for the kids you have? Get therapy and get over it." She burst into tears, of course, and her husband called me a tramp before leaving with her. My parents are absolutely furious with me, saying, "You know what she's been through." And even my husband is saying it was uncalled for. Am I the a-hole? Ah, man. I mean, what is there to say in this situation? I feel like if it was me, I'd just have to keep letting it happen. I personally would not even have the ability to say what OP said there. I don't think it was the right thing to say. But I'm going to go with everyone sucks here in this situation. She's still holding on to it, and I can completely understand why she's still holding on to it. But there is a time and a place. It's called being in the therapist's office, and they can help you understand that you don't have to keep putting that on everyone else, because I don't think it's healthy to continue to put it on anyone else, especially when it happened 10 years ago. No one continues for like 10 years. You've got some serious problems there, and I think that she needs help. She needs a lot of help. So I think it's also not right for OP to do it, her to continue to talk about it. I think everyone just sucks here in this situation. 1. Yes, it was uncalled for and mean for you to say that. 2. 10 years is a long time for her to be bringing it up a lot. 3. But her child died. 4. But she is being insensitive about your infertility. You should have sat her down and said, "Infertility is very hard for me. I know what you went through is terrible, but I will never have children, and you have 5 healthy children. It is very hard for me to hear you discuss the loss of your child when I know I will never be able to even have one of my own. Everyone sucks here, you more than her, I think." Quite honestly, I feel like OP is "everyone sucks here," edited because it does seem more fitting considering the circumstances and the day the outburst happened, although sister is the bigger a-hole. She had to hear about it for 10 years, and not in a way of, "I'm sad because my child died," but in a way of, "I'm sorry I'm late, I was mourning. I'm sorry I couldn't do this, I was mourning." And I imagine, "I'm sorry you're getting the attention of our parents now, but I need it more because I'm mourning." My mum had 2 stillbirths with heavy medical procedures attached to it before she had me. She wasn't supposed to have me. She mentions it sometimes, but it's never in a way, "Sorry, daughter, I couldn't do anything today because I'm still mourning." If someone next to you dies, you're expected to function like you did before a few months after. Her sister is not functioning like that at all. And then I don't mean that it's not okay to visit a grave to mourn, but if you know you have to be somewhere, you'll pay attention to being on time. Life shouldn't revolve around death like her sister's life does. Because if that's so, then OP can continuously grieve about the fact that she can't have children. "Sorry I'm late, I was grieving I'm infertile. Sorry I didn't do that, I was depressed about being infertile." But let's be honest, if she did that continuously, she would be the a-hole because it's expected for her to get over it and function like a normal person. Edit. Some people in the comments made some valid points. The family needs to stop enabling the sister. OP, it would be good for you to look into therapy again, as there are still things that are obviously hurting you. like the family dynamic and how they enable your sister. I do want to say, OP, your response is justified. Your wording wasn't the best, but it's clear after years of bottling it up, you needed to let it out. But bottling those feelings up are the reason why therapy might be a thing, so you can let it go. Not for your sister, but for yourself. You are a very strong person because you let being infertile not define you. But your family dynamics do not seem to be healthy for you in some ways. I am not saying go no contact, ban them out of your house, insert Reddit rage. I'm saying look for your own healthy boundaries towards your sister and family. Take care of yourself and your needs. Also, people have voiced their concerns for the sister's living children. I really hope they do not suffer under the continuous grief of your sister, OP, and that there is someone who will keep an eye on them, because your sister's behavior can be very damaging to the self-esteem of her children. Am I not as good as my dead sibling? Am I not good enough for my mum? Etc. I hope the children are loved. That was just an amazing comment. That's probably the best one I've read in a while. Everyone sucks here. You don't get to dictate how other people handle grief, and you certainly don't get to tell them to go get over it. Suggesting she go to therapy was a good call, but that's a conversation that should have been done privately and expressed with more concern for her well-being rather than annoyance. The reason I'm putting everyone sucks here instead of you're the a-hole is because your sister has created what sounds like an unhealthy coping mechanism for dealing with her child's passing, to the point where it's negatively impacting others over such a great span of time. Again, it's normal to grieve, but to absent-mindedly burn you and then blame it on thinking of her baby, or to have other bad habits blamed on her grief, are not normal. And you are right by saying she needs to address them. Not as crudely as you put it though. One last thought. The fact that she has children in lieu of you being infertile should not be a factor in this situation. Your struggles are not a competition, and you shouldn't take it so personally. Then she needs her space to sort out her grief. It's obviously okay to care about her and be worried because she's your sister, but it's not so okay when this feeling stems on the fact that she has something you can't. Your infertility doesn't invalidate her feelings, and I hope you're able to work past this. And then just underneath that, a lot of people are saying not the a-hole, and I think with these reasons given here, I can see why OP made that decision to say that, and I'm still everyone sucks here, but I'm leaning on that OP is not the a-hole. I feel like 10 years is more than enough to crack when you're in a situation like this. Posted by user Disciple of Tiamat, titled, Am I the a-hole for suing my ex-wife's lover for alienation of affection? So my wife came out as gay after 16 years of marriage and 1 child. She dropped the bomb about 3 months before she moved out of our house to move in with her lover of over 2 years. Our son chose to stay behind with me and still regularly talks to his mum. While consulting with my attorney about the pending divorce, he suggested filing a civil suit against my ex's lover for being the cause of the marriage breaking up. I followed his advice, and they were served with the papers. The following day, my ex and her lover confront me in front of our house, and it led to a shouting match and my wife leaving in tears. Our son is indifferent about the suit, but deep down I think he feels some resentment towards us both. I know it will be a long shot, but the suit to me is more symbolic. My way of extracting my pound of meat for 16 years of blood, sweat, and tears. It's my way of moving on, even if nothing comes out of it. I feel vindicated in some small way. I don't know about all of the circumstances of your relationship. It sounds like there's heaps going on below the surface. I'm just gonna say that everyone sucks here for this one. She was cheating on you? Dear Lord? 3 months before she moved out with her lover of over 2 years? Dude, that hurts. That hurts to hear. Everyone sucks here. You? This is 100% out of spite and nasty. She's not coming back, and you are going to hurt everyone. Her for carrying on a 2-year affair, which is never okay. I'd honestly not see the problem in filing a suit for alienation of affection, so long as the plaintiff was a sex the spouse could even have affection for. Alienation of affection basically means if X hadn't come along and stolen my spouse, our relationship would have been fine even to this day, which doesn't work when your spouse is attracted only to women and you're a man. This is true. I really think the whole alienation of affection idea is antiquated. You can't force someone to love you any more than someone else can force you to love them. It's the whole stealing idea, which is bullcrap. You can't steal people unless it is literal kidnapping. If this dude's wife was in love with him, the other woman would have stood no chance. People make decisions. The wife made the decision to cheat. The other woman threw her hat in, but the wife decided to pick it up. Feelings change. The A of A, at its basest, is my woman is property and incapable of independent thought. Someone showed her something shiny and she was instantly mesmerized. This is dumb and antiquated. Or antiquated, I don't know. She found someone else. I'm sorry you lost 16 years with her. Mourn, move on, and find someone else. Am I the a-hole for getting a waitress fired from her job because she left me her phone number? I, 20 male, went for dinner with my family and parents in their 50s right before the lockdown. Anyway, there was a fairly attractive waitress, looked to be in her 20s, serving us. Afterwards, she left her phone number for me with a smiley face, saying she found me cute. For several reasons, I was quite irritated by this. First and foremost, my parents teased me about this, which made me feel uncomfortable. Secondly, it seems very unprofessional and personal. I'm a customer and she's the server. She doesn't know me, and this was a very forward thing to do. I'd ideally like to just have had my food without any issues. So after finishing, I asked to speak to the manager and filed a complaint. I checked on Facebook for the page of the restaurant, and I saw someone leave a bad review for the place. Lo and behold, it was her. She got fired. My sister said I was an a-hole for doing this, but I think I was well within my rights. Am I the a-hole? Well, would you guys say he's not the a-hole if she didn't get fired? Because I feel like as a result of this, maybe, yeah, I think he's the a-hole that it came to this point, but maybe she did a lot of things like this in the past and it's led up to this happening. I don't think we get the full story here. Like I say all the time, I'm sorry. I'm like a broken record. But I'd say because she's been fired, OP is the a-hole for reporting her. But I'm also inclined to say, hey, we're not going to victim blame here. So even then, he could not be the a-hole. I don't know. I just have a gut feeling he's the a-hole for this. Bro, she dodged a bullet. You're a piece of frickin' work, Lamau. You're the a-hole. Right? I like that he admits he found her attractive, but then throws her under the bus because, oh no, his parents teased him. It could also be that OP feels she's not good enough for him because of her employment status. You're the a-hole, OP. If you didn't want to call her, just don't. Don't ruin others' lives because of your ego. Oh no, Mummy and Daddy keep saying I have cooties and laughing about it. Yes, you're the a-hole. You could have just walked away, dude. You're the a-hole. You could have just thrown the number away and continued on with your life. Definitely the a-hole. If this isn't fake, you're the a-hole, full stop. Your attitude about social interactions in general, fudging sucks, and also it's not her fault at all that your parents teased you about it. I'm gonna break with the rest of people here and say not the a-hole solely for the reason you saved her from potentially going on a date with you, or even worse, a relationship. Really had me there in the first half, not gonna lie. Posted by user Deep Sigh of Relief, titled, Am I the a-hole for feeding my baby at an interview? Okay Reddit, here's the deal. On mobile, etc. Today I went to a job interview at a childcare facility. I had done a phone interview back in March for the summer, and they knew that I would have to bring my baby with me to the in-person interview. So keep in mind, she did have heaps of time to get a babysitter in between this time. That was definitely an open possibility. But instead, she told them, oh, yo, look, there's such a long time away, but my baby's going to be there at this job interview, don't worry. When I got the call yesterday to come in, I verified that they had room at the center for my now 7-month-old and that I could bring him to the interview with me. I arrived 10 minutes early. My usual early is better than late. And was handed a paper application and questionnaire to fill out. After filling out the forms, I was called back to the director's office just as my son was fussing for his lunch. I asked the director if there was something I could set his car seat on while I fed him. She looked at me funny and asked me if he could wait until after the interview to eat. I smiled and said, well, he's hungry now, and I'd like to go ahead and take care of that. She told me there wasn't anything to put him on and she had no food for him. I clarified that I brought his food, he just needs to be fed. She replied that he needed to wait until we're done. I laughed a bit and invited her to explain to my infant son that he needed to wait, saying he may listen to her, but I doubt it since, he's a baby, and when babies are hungry, you feed them. She said she would interview the other candidate first to allow me time to feed the baby. I sat on the floor out of the way in the lobby as they had no tables to put the car seat on and feed him, changed him in the back of my car and came back in. I was almost immediately called back by the director. I thanked her for being flexible with the interview order so I could feed my son and that I got him fed and changed. She immediately told me that in 20 years, she has only done this twice, and told me that she didn't think I'd be a good fit for the position. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for feeding my baby? I think the question should be, so Reddit, am I the a-hole for not hiring a nanny or getting someone to look after my baby for a job interview? When I had months to do it, but I still came and brought my kid to the interview anyway and, halted the interview and made them wait for me to feed my kid who shouldn't have been there in the first place. OP, you're the a-hole for doing that. She's not seen anything like this in her 20 years. She's only had to tell 2 people in that time, including you, that she doesn't think they're a good fit for the position. I think you need to have a good hard look at yourself and think, man, why did I screw this interview up? Maybe I can change and not do this again in the future. You're the a-hole. I've never hired anyone that brought their kid to an interview. I read that as this person doesn't have reliable childcare. So how often will there be a problem with their work schedule? I don't disagree that OP is the a-hole, but for a different reason. It was for a childcare facility. The norm is that her kid would be using that childcare facility while she works, but she still shouldn't have brought the baby to the interview. I honestly think the biggest thing that made OP with the a-hole was her extreme rudeness and belligerence to the interviewer, laughing in her face and giving her sarcastic answers. In the long run though, OP probably did the director a favor by putting all her cards on the table in the interview and demonstrating herself to be someone the childcare facility didn't want on their staff. I definitely would not want to hire someone who acted like this in an interview, baby or not. Edit. Yikes. I just went through all of OP's comments in this thread. They're all over the place. Argumentative, hostile, insulting, and snide. She seems like a nightmare. If even a glimpse of this underlying personality is coming through in future interviews, I don't think she has a great chance of landing a job. Let's find some. You're the a-hole, just for your snarky, unprofessional responses to the person who literally held your fate in their hands. Based on your other replies, it sounds like caring for your kids is still a full-time job, and you're the only person you will allow to care for them, so a job like that probably isn't in the cards. No. I'm the primary caregiver at home because of my mum's rheumatoid arthritis, my mother-in-law's arthritis, and my husband's work schedule. I have no issues with someone else caring for the baby. Of course, the center director held my fate in her hands. She's the only one who gets to decide who to hire. Why allow me to bring him in if I'm not allowed to care for him? Or expect a baby to just wait when they're hungry? Being rude to the interviewer is such an obviously self-destructive tactic that I suspect you didn't really want the job in the first place. I wouldn't hire you either. You're the a-hole. If they had some room for your son, shouldn't you have entrusted them with his care while you interviewed? You may have showed up 10 minutes early, but you weren't ready until after your son ate, so you were technically late. As he is not enrolled in the school, they would not allow him in a classroom or allow a staff member to take care of him during the interview. Then don't bring him. You're the a-hole, not for feeding your baby. Of course the baby needs to be fed. The problem is that you knew you had an interview and you should have planned around that. The director also has things to do with their day. Respecting someone else's time, especially when they're giving you a job interview, is important. I hear what you're saying. They set the time though. I also didn't ask to wait until after he had eaten, but rather where I could put him while I fed him while interviewing. I can absolutely multitask, and interviewing while spoon-feeding an infant is not taxing. You sound quite professional. I'm sorry, but you're the a-hole. And my personal favorite when they're talking about bringing the child to the interview, and they say down there, I have an 11-month-old. Hey, your baby wasn't hungry. He ate an hour before. He doesn't have to have puree at the very moment. They say, you are very welcome to explain that to him. Thank you, OP. Very cool. Posted by user Clothes in Drawers, titled, Am I the a-hole for throwing my kids' clothes onto the floor when they don't fold their clothes neatly? So I've always been kind of a neat freak mum the entire time my kids have been alive. I always expect their rooms to be clean, and I check their drawers, closets, and storage bins to make sure they don't just shove stuff in there to make the room appear clean. The kids, aged 16, 13, 9, and 6, are all responsible for putting away their laundry, and my oldest two are responsible for folding their own clothes. Which bothers me, because my 13-year-old folds his clothes in a way that bothers me. He rolls them up instead of properly folding them. Ever since the kids have been home and have more free time, I am more strict about the way they put away their clothes. I expect their clothes to be folded a certain way and organized in a certain way in their drawers. I read from a mummy blogger a few years ago that when her kids' drawers weren't organized, she would make a mess for them to organize the right way. I considered it for a few years, but now that the kids are old enough, I think it's the way to go for us. I haven't had to do this until yesterday. I walked into my 16-year-old's room while she was FaceTiming her boyfriend and saw her basket of laundry that needed to be folded, and out of curiosity, opened her drawers and saw she's shoved her clothes in there. I started making a mess, and she screamed, "Mom, why?" And I told her she knew why. After that, I walked out of her room. She explained to her boyfriend what I did, and he says, "Your mum's fudging crazy, bruh." And I peek my head into her room, give her a look, and she ends the call with him and breaks down crying. I told my husband what happened. He told me, "I knew you were going to do that, but I didn't know you'd actually follow through." This morning, I woke up to a note on my daughter's door saying, "Until mum can get mental help, I'm staying with Aunt," my sister's name. I texted her, no response. I tried contacting my sister, who said she has no plans to return until I get mental help and stop being such a controlling tramp. My husband, sister, and mum are all against me in this, which hurts. I don't think it harmed my daughter. It benefits her, and it helps her stay organized. I'm not the problem. Everyone else is the problem. I'm not the a-hole. You're crazy, not me. I think OP should take the suggestion of the daughter and go get some mental help. Might help her realize what's going on. You're the a-hole. You know who acts like this? Marine Corps drill instructors. Why? To mentally mess with recruits. This is not okay within the family unit. It's insane that you think it's okay to control how your kids fold their clothes in their drawers. This is completely horrid. OP is totally you're the a-hole. If my mum did this, I would be gone. I completely empathize with the daughter. I actually laughed out loud at the daughter's note. I don't blame her at all. Honestly, that was pretty fudging ironic and a pretty strong indication that this is not abnormal behavior on mum's part. You don't just go from 0 to moving out and leaving only a note that amounts to, "I'll come back when you stop behaving ridiculously. Deuces." You're the a-hole. You shouldn't even be in your older two children's rooms so much, let alone going through their drawers. Plus, just because they do it differently than you doesn't make the way they put away their clothes incorrect. What you did was take objectively clean clothes and put them on a dirty floor. Your oldest girl was right to go to the aunt's for a cooling off period with you. She's in safe hands. For what it's worth, you have to give your teens some level of independence now for them to be functional adults later, or for them to want any relationship with you. Kids that are micromanaged, from what I've seen, really go a bit too wild in college and that not. So if you're trying to make everything backfire later, by all means continue being controlling to this unreasonable degree. That last bit about kids that are micromanaged, I went to high school with a girl. Her mum worked as a support teacher at our school. She wasn't allowed to do much, and her mum had very high expectations of her. She went to university, and only a couple of months ago, ended up passed out in a nightclub bathroom. She absolutely lost it when she finally got freedom. With the way you typed this out, I was initially trying to read it like a poem. You're the a-hole. My mum used to do this, and now we have minimum contact. Seek mental help before you alienate your kids entirely, because there's a difference between expecting a clean space and being an unreasonable control freak. Did your mum also throw the dirty dishes out the window while screaming at her kids for not doing them? Because if so, you might have been my neighbor back in high school. That woman was nuts. Posted by user Bridget Longans, titled, Am I the a-hole for not giving my daughter a letter my deceased husband wrote for her before he died? In January 2019, my husband was diagnosed with a brain tumor. It was in a completely inoperable part of the brain, and was told that he had 6 months to live. He stuck it out and died in October, 3 months longer than he was expected to. He was always positive and decided a few weeks after his diagnosis that he would write letters to our daughters for significant events in their lives. My husband was my soulmate, and the past few months have been difficult knowing I've lost him. We have 2 daughters, Mia, who is 21, and Imogen, Immy, who is 19. All 3 of us have become a lot closer since Dad's death, and we've all really struggled. My husband and I were together since we were children, got married when we were 18, and we were approaching our 20th wedding anniversary when he passed. In February of this year, Mia got married to a boy she's been with for about 6 years. I absolutely love her husband, and he's been incredibly supportive during all of our grief. My husband wrote a letter for Mia to open on her wedding day. It's worth noting that my daughters were unaware of these letters. It was my job to give them to our daughters. Her wedding day comes around, and I just can't bring myself to give her the letter. I read it and just wanted to keep it to myself. I had his handwriting and his words, and it felt like he was there, and I couldn't bear the thought of giving that up yet. I was fully intending on giving her all the other letters as the events happened. Last week, Mia and her husband bought their first house together. They'd been living at our home since they got married, and so had a lot of stuff to pack and move into their new house. Mia asked me where the important documents were, her passport, birth certificate, etc. So I told her they were in my top drawer of my dresser in my bedroom. The only letter that was in there was the one that I meant to give her on her wedding day. The rest were hidden away. She immediately recognized his handwriting, and of course, it was addressed to her. So she read it and broke down. She came and found me and started screaming at me, asking how I could be so selfish. I didn't really know what to say, apart from the fact that I wanted to keep it and she could take a picture of it. Both my daughters called me an a-hole and are convinced I'm keeping them from a load of their dad's stuff. Am I the a-hole? Edit, have your opinions. That's why I posted this. But do not come into my PMs and tell me I should have been the one to die instead. You're worse than I am if that's what gets you off. Sending me death threats isn't okay either. Oh, that edits, man, that is heavy. But I do think you're the a-hole for keeping those letters to yourself. I can understand where the logic is coming from, and I understand you're still grieving, but it's not your place to keep those letters as hard as it is for you. So you're the a-hole for keeping them from her. You're the a-hole, and she's right. You're selfish and a thief. That wasn't yours to keep. My dad died when I was 17. Do you have any idea how hard it was to marry a man my dad never got to meet? To walk down the aisle without him? My wedding day was supposed to be one of my best memories, and instead it was just so hard. A letter would have meant the world to me. What you did was rotten, and the fact you still haven't realized that speaks volumes. This wasn't only your loss. Do you not realize that? I think it's so selfish. I would kill to have something like that from my dad. You and me both. My bio dad died when I was a freshman in high school. He never got to see me graduate from high school, and I still miss him so much. I cannot believe the selfishness of this woman. Who does that to their own kids? It makes me so angry. And what would the dad think of her keeping the letter? I feel like a bit of an a-hole myself putting that lens on it, but really, OP, what would he think? He wrote that letter for her. Don't you think he'd be disappointed that in guarding it for yourself, you stole that precious moment from your daughter? You're the a-hole. You may be his wife, but he's her father. What an utterly selfish act you've done. His dying wish failed in your hands. You disrespected his memory. How could you? Edit. Those of you who are messaging OP directly with pure nastiness, just stop. Yes, what she did was absolutely disgusting, but so is telling her she should be the dead one. At the end of the day, she made a massive mistake based on the heightened emotions of losing someone she desperately loved. If I lost mine, I would 100% be in a horrific state. She knows now how wrong she was, and probably will never forgive herself. OP, I wish you nothing but healing time for you and your daughter. It may take a long time, but please don't give up and try to make amends if possible. I'm in disbelief about this right here. How fudging dare OP take away her dead husband's only opportunity to be there for his daughter on her wedding day? She has absolutely no right to that letter or any of the others. Her husband made a beautiful gesture for his daughters in his last months, and OP crapped all over it because of her own selfishness. You're the a-hole, OP. What do you think your husband would say? He trusted you with his final words to his children, and you betrayed that trust. How could you possibly think you aren't an a-hole? Posted by user Wife is Beautiful. Titled, Am I the a-hole for laughing at the way my wife poops? I get how silly this sounds, but my wife is still giving me the cold shoulder, and I need to know if I screwed up as badly as she thinks. Hopefully this post will give us both some perspective. My wife and I, 26 male and 25 female, have been married for 2 years. We started trying for our first baby about a year ago, and she's finally pregnant. This whole thing has been a roller coaster, as it's the first time for both of us, but the worst part is the pooping. Every morning I wake up to the sound of my wife taking the biggest poops, and the way she breathes while doing it just sounds hilarious to me. It sounds like she's having an orgasm. I can't help it, I just find it to be really funny. But she always gets upset when she hears me laughing at the way she's been pooping recently, so she always turns the fan on and closes the door now. But I still hear it, and it still makes me chuckle. But I've been hiding it better now so she doesn't hear. This has been going on for a few weeks, and everything was working out okay until last night during sexy times. I was going down on her, and in the middle of it, I suddenly realized she was making the same noises she makes when she poops. I tried so hard to not burst into laughter, but I couldn't help myself. My wife got extremely upset and asked me what was so funny. I didn't want to tell her because I knew she'd get mad, but she badgered me. So I eventually gave in and told her. She completely flipped out and went to go sleep on the couch. This morning I made her French toast, her favorite breakfast, but she barely touched it. She went on a rant about how I always made her feel disgusting and unattractive, but I don't get where this is coming from because I tell her that she's beautiful all the time. I apologized about last night in hopes it would calm her down, but she's still giving me the silent treatment, so I'm at a bit of a loss right now. Hopefully some third-party feedback will help us understand one another better. So tell me, Reddit, am I the a-hole? I think it goes without saying that OP is the a-hole here, but it's good that he owned up to it and he's seeking to make amends here. I think, they probably need couples counseling or something. It might be a bit far. I think this one just needs time and to work at the solution. Don't laugh at your wife during sex. It's not okay to do that, especially if it's something she's going to be insecure about. But I feel it is something that can be worked out with time, love, and care. You're the a-hole. So basically you just told your wife that she cannot relax and have fun during playtime because during playtime she breathes like she's pooing. So why would she have sex again? I mean, if she can't relax and enjoy it, is there any point? You're the a-hole. How would you feel if your wife started laughing at you in the middle of sex? She probably feels humiliated. I doubt she'll even want to have sex with you now. Would you want to have sex with someone who laughed at you the last time? You need to realize how what you've done is affecting her. Telling her she's beautiful doesn't mean a damn thing if you're laughing at her every single day. Either figure out how to control this immature laughter, or move somewhere you can't hear her poop. Then, put some serious effort into making sure she feels desired and appreciated. The worst is the damage is done. Now when they get things on, she will be constantly thinking about not making those noises and worrying about if she lets go that she will make them. My wife is super self-conscious about pooping, will not do it in public because she fears people will hear her, but she'll call me into the dunny while she's going and chat to me. Honestly, as weird as it is, I find it a huge compliment that she's so comfortable with me that she can do something around me she will not let faceless anonymous strangers even hear. Opie has made his wife self-conscious about pooping and now about sex. So double whammy, and congratulations on screwing with your wife's self-confidence to a degree that I don't see them having good sex for the foreseeable future. It'll be her letting him do his thing while she concentrates on not making pooping grunts and moans. Yup, this entirely. As if I didn't feel self-conscious enough already, this in itself would make me want to nope out of anything and everything and not make me comfortable anymore to be myself around my husband. This is legitimately the type of thing that carry on to PPD. The ramifications of this are honestly stunning. The mass level of mental damage done. Opie, I hope you're reading this. No matter what she says, I would highly recommend she see someone before her mental health unravels at birth. And, a lot of people can say, well, that's really pushing it, but we've seen in these stories, PPD does absolutely have huge effects on people, and it's not a huge shot in the dark. So, if it was my wife, I would probably encourage her to see a professional so that we can work this out, because that is a lot of potential damage in the future. You're the a-hole. She's going through a lot physically and emotionally, whether or not your intentions are bad. You're still laughing at her, not with her. You're even laughing at her while sharing intimate moments with her. No one wants someone to draw attention to tough and embarrassing physical changes that their body is going through. Give her privacy, and maybe go someplace that you can't hear her when she's in the bathroom. Posted by user AmiTheA New York. Titled, Am I the a-hole for giving away my son's pet dog due to his irresponsible behavior? Throwaway for obvious reasons, I don't wish to be recognized by my friends. Here's the story. Around August last year, my son, who's 11 years old, started begging us to get him a pet dog for him as his Christmas gift. He promised us he will take good care of the dog, shower him well, feed him well, take him on strolls. He promised us he'll be a responsible owner. Right at the beginning, my husband and I didn't agree to it because we know him well. He's not capable of fulfilling such responsibilities. We told him he needs to earn that trust from us, and empty promises just don't work. Ever since his request for a dog got rejected, his behavior had changed for the better. He started doing his household chores on his own accord without reaping any benefits. I'll admit, I thought he had changed for the better for the sake of proving himself that he is completely capable of being a responsible owner. A few months later, Christmas came, and after some discussion, my husband and I agreed to get him a dog because we thought he had changed for the better. We've made it very clear we will not be doing anything for the dog, and he has to do everything by himself. Initially, he was really doing everything well, and my husband and I merely supported financially by buying a kennel, dog food, dog toys, and vet fees, etc. But a month later, he started revealing his old self back. He became lazy and would skip bath time or stroll time a day or two, then a week, and this resulted in us doing it for him on those days. We had a talk with him and warned him we'll be giving the dog away if this continues. I'm assuming he is thinking I'm just passing an empty threat because each time he promises he'll change for the better, he never actually did. The breaking point was last night when my husband and I were busy with our work and we merely asked him to walk the dog. He howled at us and tells us that he's tired of the dog and he's sick of it. Enraged, I told him that this will be the last time he'll be seeing his dog and did the work for him. This morning, while he was out with his dad to get groceries, I took the opportunity to call my cousin to our home and gave the dog to her, who has always shown interest in our dog. I've been planning to give the dog to her ever since my son started showing signs of shirking his responsibility, and yesterday was the last straw. If you're wondering, yes, I intentionally gave it away while my son isn't around so he wouldn't have a chance to manipulate my husband and myself. When he came back home, he saw his dog missing, and I told him I've already given the dog away as warned. I also reminded him that I've given him a lot of chances, and it was his fault for not cherishing it. My husband is angry at me because regardless of the matter, it's an undeniable fact that the dog has bonded with our family. I'm beginning to question if I am the a-hole. Maybe you should. That's, kids are kids. And I definitely know myself at 11 years old, I would not have the mental capacity really to be like, yo, I need to put in hard work every single day of my life to work for this dog. He's human. He's going to have his off days. He's going to have his good days. You teach him. You're the parent. You give him good manners. You don't just slap him down and say, you know what? I didn't raise you to be, the hardest working kid ever. And because of that, I'm going to punish you. No, it doesn't work like that, buddy. You're an a-hole for not helping him out when he needed the help and slowly pushing him to be a better dog owner over time. He didn't even have that dog for long enough to truly know how to look after it, I feel like. So you're the a-hole. I reckon you're the a-hole on a few fronts. 1, you absolutely should have known the kid was never going to take 100% responsibility. Every kid says that when they want a dog. I know I did it. Sure, Mum ribbed me about it, but she didn't go and give our dog away. This isn't being irresponsible. He's 11. This is being a kid that wants a dog. 2, you really should have spoken to your husband, because parenting needs to be a united front on big decisions like this. You talk to him to buy it, but not to give it away? Explain that. 3, you gave away your family pet over something everyone saw coming. That poor dog. I suggest you don't get any more pets because you clearly don't have the respect for animals that they deserve. You are its family, and you gave it away. No matter how many times you say it's my kid's dog, you are the adult support of the animal, which means it is your responsibility too, and you have not done right by it here. Finally, a sane answer here. If you get your kid a pet, as the adult, it's common sense to predict that your kid will be flaky, as 99% of kids are, and to realize that the responsibility ultimately falls on the parents. I'm also confused as to what she was planning to do when the dog is 7 to 8 and her kid goes off to college or trade school. Would she dump the dog then because the son was no longer home to take care of it? A lot of people love to whine about how high of standards a lot of shelters now have for adopting, but this is why. They see pets being dumped over and over again for the same reasons, and understandably want to prevent people like OP from adopting and then abandoning the dog very predictably. My family adopted a dog when I was 14, and one of the things they specified was that the dog was going to be the whole family's dog, and this whole family's responsibility, and that there would still be a caretaker if and when I went to college in 4 years. At the time, I thought it was a little over the top, and I knew I was going to go to a local college and live at home. So why did it matter? Well, predictably, a lot changed in those 4 years, and I ended up going to college 4 hours away, definitely not living at home. Also predictably, even at 14, I wasn't always able to be the primary caregiver for the dog, but the dog was my family dog, so of course she didn't just starve or get dumped, which is why the shelter made sure to ask. I never thought about that. My family always had cats growing up, sometimes multiple, and they were always family cats. The cats had their favorite people, sure, but to have only one person responsible for the pet out of the entire house seems so odd to me now. Am I the a-hole for taking back the beer I bought for a party which I was uninvited? This happened just a few hours ago. I'm a 19-year-old man, and the people calling me an a-hole are 18-year-old men and women. On Thursday, a person I had a major crush on in high school, but who rejected me, messaged me out of the blue. She had never contacted me without my contacting her first, and at one point I realized she had blocked me on social media, and so I found it odd that she was suddenly being friendly. After sending a couple of greetings and questions about how I've been, she said that she was going to have some people over and wanted to know if I would get the beer. The drinking age where we are is 19, and she and the people who were going to chill were all 18. The liquor stores in my area all card. I thought it was silly that my being a month older meant I could buy liquor and they couldn't, and so I said I would love to go. She said thanks, I'll pick you up at 7. 7 o'clock rolled around, and she texted me to say she was in front of my house. I went out dressed and ready to chill with some people, and she drove me to the liquor store. When we got there, I asked her what beer she wanted me to get, and she told me to get Budweiser. I hid my disappointment as well as I could, but it was her party, so I went in and bought 2 cases of 24. I got back in the car and said, "Let's party," and she was eerily quiet. I noticed that she wasn't driving towards her neighborhood, but rather back towards mine. I thought she had moved or something, but didn't want to press the issue. When she turned down my street, I finally figured it out. She was being purposefully vague about the invitation because she wanted me to get the beer, but she wanted a way out when she told me I wasn't actually invited in the first place. She stopped in front of my house, leaned over, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Thanks," in her best voice. I deadpanned her and asked when she was going to tell me I wasn't invited. She feigned surprise and said that she never intended to invite me in the first place. I sat in silence for a long, awkward minute, picked up the beer, and walked towards my front door. She got out of her car and frantically tried to re-invite me to the party, but I told her that what she did was the most humiliating thing that ever happened to me. I opened my front door, slammed it a bit hard, and came back to my room. Now I'm sitting here drinking absolutely unpalatable piss water, and I have text messages from all of her friends and her asking me why I'm being such a dick. I don't think I'm an a-hole for reacting the way I did, but if you haven't figured it out, I'm not amazing socially, so I'm not sure. Am I the a-hole here? I'm going to say no, you're very much justified in your actions there, and I think you knew you were being used from the start there, and it's not a good feeling. That's for sure. It's never a good feeling to be used. So I think you did what was right in that situation. You took the beer back. It sounds like you paid for it and not her, which disgusting in itself, isn't it? OP not the a-hole, and those people really need to grow up and stop using people. Not the a-hole. Blatantly. How did she expect this to go? You'd happily go buy her beer, then take it to the party, and then leave without partying or drinking your beer? They all have to be a bit cracked in the head if they believe that was ever going to work. I'd take a Snapchat of me pouring that down a toilet before I ever gave it to them. I'm sorry this happened to you. I hope you can move past what a nasty piece of work this girl, not woman, is. That's an awesome idea. I was planning to just throw them in my fridge and tell my stepdad to go nuts because he'll drink anything. No, he's not an alcoholic, but down the toilet would work well too. Pour one out for a terrible party and then give the rest to your stepdad. You get brownie points for doing something nice for him while she gets to go cry over being terrible. This, but in the photo, hold a few bottles to make it look like you're flushing the whole lot out of spite instead of just one. And have a few half-crushed empty cans on the ground in the shot for good measure. Personally, I wouldn't recommend that. I would just drink it and give it to the stepdad. Don't need to make such a show of it. But to each their own. Not the a-hole. I would have loved to see your face when you took the beer with you. Good for you. That ticked off face after doing something wrong to someone is so good to see. They should be able to buy Budweiser because in my area, it's not considered beer, but camel pee. Oh. Posted by user Disastrous Afternoon 1, titled, "Am I the a-hole for not dropping child support even if my husband is able to support my child financially?" When I was 20, I dated Ryan, who was 28. I let him know how I felt about abortion. I'm pro-choice, but I don't want one for me, and that I was using birth control regularly. I became pregnant 6 months into our relationship after 4 years of continuous birth control use, with 0 scares. He did not want to use a condom, which I do agree was stupid on my part. Ryan wanted no part, which I understood. All I asked was that he provided child support in whatever way that he could. He disagreed, and eventually I had to go to court. Over 3 years, he would evade support, work under the table, or use his wealthy parents to support him. I did get a steady stream of support after 2 years, but it was just barely enough. I eventually graduated from college while being a mum 24/7 and working. I was mum and dad for 3 years, and did it on my own financially, with the odd CS check here and there. After that, I met my husband Kyle. Kyle had been in our lives since my son Lucas was 3 years old. Lucas called him Dad, and they're very close. I've asked Ryan to let Kyle adopt Lucas, but he refuses. He'll barely even talk to me, and he has me blocked everywhere. I had to ask through my lawyer, and I gave up on it after several no's. We've had to learn to be content with Kyle being Lucas's real father in every way but legally. The problem is that Ryan found out exactly what Kyle does for a living. Kyle is an engineer with a well-known company. He's making enough that I can stay home with the kids and pursue other dreams of mine. For example, I've always wanted to get my master's, and with my husband's job, I can afford to put my efforts into that without worrying about the expense of childcare. Because of this, Ryan pays me child support as if I was unemployed, and he's now at an age where he has to stay at one job for more than a few months. He's paying me much more than if I was working. It makes him extremely angry to know that we're, Lucas and I, living quite comfortably. Before the current situation, we went to court. The judge and our state laws don't take into account what Kyle makes and determined that Ryan would continue to pay the set amount. He believes that he should pay nothing and Kyle can support us. I agree, but he refuses to let my son be adopted. If Ryan won't let another man be the legal father of my son, then he can't continue to fulfill the obligations of a legal father. My husband agrees and doesn't think I should just drop the child support. Obviously, Ryan wants me to drop it, and his mother has even reached out. He and his parents have never even met Lucas, and are only contacting me to drop child support. Am I the a-hole for not dropping child support? No, absolutely not. He's just seeing that you finally figured a way to support yourself and you finally found stability, and they're like, cool, this is a good reason for us to screw you even harder. What do you mean you don't want to be screwed even harder? Dude, what? The courts aren't allowing me to do this? No! In conclusion, Ryan is a bigger baby than Lucas, and that is a fact, and OP is not the a-hole. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect to read so many comments. I really appreciate the time everyone has taken to respond to me. I would like to answer a few common questions I've seen here. Does Ryan know child support is no longer his responsibility if he allows my son to be adopted? Yes, he's aware of this, or so I think. I sent a letter to his home explaining how the process would work. Essentially, no more child support in exchange for adoption. I would like to think he's not a total idiot and could have easily found out this information himself. Nevertheless, I did inform him in basic English what would happen. Does Ryan's mother know about the adoption, and have I thought of reaching out to her? Again, I would hope she saw the letter I wrote, or is intelligent enough to put 2 and 2 together. Ryan suffers from type 1 diabetes and was spoiled quite a bit. His parents couldn't protect him from child support or taking responsibility. I was the evil person who ruined their kid's life and didn't allow him to pursue going to college or whatever. He was 28 when this all happened. He wasn't going to go to college regardless, but Kathy isn't likely to back me here. I'm sure she also has that weird legacy, explained below, that prevents her from wanting to help. Why won't he allow an adoption? The main reason is that my son is the only boy in his family. His siblings all had girls, and Ryan is unlikely to marry or father another child. It's this weird sexist legacy thing his family has invented in their heads. I couldn't explain it to anyone because I don't even get it myself. My son has never met his paternal family, and he has my maiden name. What do we do with the child support? When I initially began receiving the $100 a month, I was using it all on my son since I was working a crappy job and going to school. Right now, the payments are better. Definitely not some crazy amounts. I promise I'm not trying to rob this man or bleed him dry. It's a very reasonable amount compared to his income. We actually put away a bit more than that in a fund for my daughter every month. So I put the whole child support amount in Lucas's account, and Carl makes up the remaining amount himself so that all our children are on equal footing. We call it a college fund, but we completely intend for this money to go towards anything the children want, whether it be a down payment for a home, college, trade school, etc. Again, thank you for taking the time to respond to me. I feel guilty at times because of my mother. She tells me to look at things from Ryan's perspective and how his diabetes has limited his life. I don't want to make my life harder or more complex. However, I think it's enough of feeling sorry for this man. I'll be pushing harder for this adoption to happen for my son. He's getting to the age where he understands more and is able to express what he wants to a judge. Thank you. Not the a-hole. If he wants to remain the legal father, then he needs to fulfill that responsibility. If he lets your husband adopt the son, then he's done. But for now it seems like he'll be paying for his immaturity. Literally. I hope you can lawyer up and get that money from him. I can see not wanting to give up custody if he has a role in his son's life, but he can't expect to get out of his financial obligations as a father and keep his legal status as father too. He wants all of the reward with no responsibility. Posted by user Thomas___my life. Titled, Am I the a-hole for kicking my brother-in-law and his wife out? I've lost my son 2 months ago. He was only 25, he was disabled, he had cerebral palsy since birth. My husband and I loved him so much and gave him all the love and care he needed to make it through the difficult times. Since his death, I've been getting a lot of quote-unquote advice on how to move on in life and pretend like my son didn't even exist. Just like what they did when my husband passed away 2 years ago. My brother-in-law, my husband's brother, has always been a total a-hole to me. 1 week before my husband died, he told my husband to not worry about me because I will marry again. He told this while he was dying. My husband was a great man. He was a donor. He cared for our son and always wanted for him to be happy. When my son died, right after we got back from the funeral, my brother-in-law and his wife stayed at my house for a whole week. He said, "Why are you still so sad for your son? You should be happy for him. You should be happy for the both of you. Him not having to deal with his disability anymore, and you being free, now you can go live your life without having to take care of a disabled person. It wasn't like he was going to make it to 50, right?" I just felt awful. I got so angry with him. I told him he was an a-hole and told him to get out of my house. He started running his mouth again and said, "I know you're just acting out because you're grieving, but that does not excuse your crappy behavior towards me and my wife." Before he left, I told him to hand me the spare key to my house that he stole from my husband before he died. He lifted it up and then instead of giving it to me, he tossed it in the trash bin. His wife was laughing on her way out, and I just stood there feeling awful. I cried my eyes out that day and wished that my son was there to comfort me. Now he's calling me to say that he wants me to come over and help his wife decorate his son's birthday party. Ow, ow, ow. This is more of a venting story, so you're definitely not the a-hole for kicking your brother-in-law out for that. There's no reality I do think that anyone could interpret it that way. I hope you're doing better, OP. I hope that you find some stability and way to cope with this. He is really not helping things, and you know that, and I think it would probably be good to limit most contact with that man and his wife, or even no contact, as much as people don't like to hear that. But as this seems like a situation where no contact is a very healthy thing to me. OP, not the a-hole. Girl next door type says, "Change your number and cut him off. Not sure why you stayed in contact after your husband died. You're definitely not the a-hole. I'm not sure why you would think you are. Don't change your number, block his number, his wife's, and get a restraining order so they'll have legal consequences if they continue with their crappy behavior. Truly sorry for your loss. Also, consider changing the locks on your door. He could have made another. Why risk it? Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry for your loss. You need to take care of yourself right now, and a big part of that is not allowing people who don't care for you around. Not the a-hole. I would cut them off completely because they are toxic." Posted by user ThrowRA and a whole bunch of numbers. Titled, Am I the a-hole for changing my husband's phone background? 10 years ago, I met my husband. He'd been so divorced from his wife for 2 years, and she'd taken their children across country. At the time, there were 4 female and 6 female when she took them. His phone background at the time was the girls on one of the beach with their arms around each other and smiling at the camera. It was a great, almost professional picture. It's been his background on every phone he's owned since. The girls visited every school holiday, which crushed my husband. His children decided to visit in March and only recently went home. both spent some time with our children, who were 2 and 5 and both girls. As a surprise for my husband, I got my photographer brother to take a few professional photos of the children, all 4, and the pictures turned out great. I saved my husband's background picture to make sure he has it changed and the background to one of our children. If it wasn't clear, it also had his daughters in. I got all pictures framed as well. I would have thought that he'd be happy to have more of an updated picture of all the children together. He isn't. He believes I've selfishly crossed a boundary and that it was completely out of order. It was just a surprise. He's still upset and has changed his passcode too. We're always on each other's phones. I didn't break into his phone. If I wasn't clear, all 4 children were in the photo. Am I the a-hole? I'm gonna say, yeah, unfortunately OP is the a-hole. Although I like the idea and I like the concept of it, I feel like you should have communicated that with the husband. It's, we don't know everyone. We don't know how they're going to react. And unfortunately, some people aren't going to react the same way as this guy. Some people are. Some people are going to take it worse. Everyone's different. I think communication is key in a relationship, and he should definitely been told. He shouldn't have been surprised in this way. I think he's got such an attachment with these kids that it's, it is a huge break of trust to do that to someone. And I don't think that's an okay boundary to cross. So unfortunately, you are the a-hole OP. Soft, you're the a-hole. Getting the pictures done and having them framed isn't a bad thing at all. But changing the phone background isn't as great. There's a reason why that picture has been his phone background for so long. Phones are pretty personal. So messing with the settings and backgrounds on someone else's phone without permission is pretty invasive. This is what I say too. If the picture has been his background for several phones, it obviously has great sentimental value. OP should have simply stated that she has other photos if he would like to change his background. Then he would have the chance to emotionally decide. By doing it without his consent, OP crossed a line. You're the a-hole. Soft, you're the a-hole? OP should have asked. I think if all 4 kids were in the new picture, then no a-holes here. You have to remember, he sees your children every day, and he probably misses his older 2 a lot. It's not the contents of the photo that's the issue though. It's the boundary of a very personal thing that was changed without permission. That's true. I think it really depends on how open they are with their phones. Like, my boyfriend wouldn't care if I did that, but obviously some people would be rightfully upset. I think if she replaced the older 2 with just the younger 2, that would be a solid you're the a-hole. My photo background is my version of a photo in a locket. I'm open with my phone, but I don't want people rearranging my settings or my photo background. No a-holes here. You didn't erase the photo, you didn't do anything malicious, and you didn't invade his privacy. You did something that most people would find to be pretty sweet, honestly. Better question here is why, if he has 2 other kids, why didn't he want them included? This was my vibe as well. It was supposed to be a cute surprise. I don't get all these guys telling her that she's the a-hole. I think definitely no a-holes here. Changing a background back is like 2 seconds of work, and she made sure the picture was backed up. I really don't see the issue. I noticed most people saying that she's the a-hole for talking about invasion of privacy, which is pretty stupid. She changed the background. She didn't snoop through his phone. It is stupid. They're married, and she had a picture taken of all of them and put as the backgrounds. I don't get why these people think it's okay for him to not have all of his kids on his phone. I mean, he can have whoever he wants on his phone, especially if he doesn't see the others very often. My mum has a picture of my brother on her phone, and has for a while, because he recently left for the military. No a-holes for sure. Posted by user Snoo27375, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my coworker, I told you so, after she tried to throw me under the bus? I am an assistant to the top people at my company. Anything they need, I do. Whether it's setting up meetings, getting them Starbucks, to doing their expense reports. I started in December, and they like me because I focus 100% on them. Other people in my office noticed it and have asked me for help, and I learned the hard way that once you agree to help someone, then you assume a certain level of accountability. For example, if someone wanted me to mail out a check for them, and I do, but the check never arrives, then that's on me. It's never like, you're not even supposed to be helping us, so don't worry about it. It turns into something that distracts me from what I was hired to do. Basically, I won't do anything but my job and keep my bosses happy. Last month, they brought on a new worker. She has to be set up a certain way because she was slowly going to take over some accounts in our system. We have a vendor that does this for us, but I've also been learning how to do it internally so our company doesn't have to pay the vendor. The setup profile that her manager was confusing and made no sense to the vendor, so it came all screwed up. 2 days before she were to start, this manager asks me to get her up into the system the way she needed her to be set up. I already had a conversation with this manager that I am by no means proficient enough to do these customized setups and would not even try because I don't want to screw things up. It's not like I'll get a pass for trying, and I don't have time to call up this vendor and try to tramp at them. Furthermore, she wouldn't even put in writing what she needed because she kept changing her mind. I told her I felt like she was just trying to find someone to blame if this went bad, and I will not be that person. She had a fit, and even said she would talk to my boss about it, and even said the last assistant wasn't this difficult. I told her to go right ahead. Afterwards, I wouldn't say I ignored her emails to the vendor that she CC'd me on in regards to the setup, I just read the ones from my bosses, the ones that matter. The setup was never done correctly and caused bigger problems. In the end, the new employee quit after a month of citing, "You guys don't have your crap together," and the manager got chewed out in a meeting. I was called in because she mentioned my name. I told everyone that I was asked to do something that I could not do. So I didn't, and I left it alone. When they asked me why, I said because I didn't want to be thrown under the bus like she was trying to do now. After the meeting, the manager came out and was upset. I said, "All I have to say to you is I told you so." I'm not one for the 9-to-5 office job life, but by the sounds of it, OP is not the a-hole, and she was very much asked to do something she has no skills in, and it absolutely would have landed her in trouble, like it did last time with the check, had this happened if she was in charge. So OP, very big smart, OP not the a-hole. Otis says, "Not the a-hole. Get the hell out of that toxic work culture though. It pays well enough to tolerate it. Plus, I have the excuse of hiding behind my bosses when someone asks me for something that I don't want to do. The reason why things have gotten bad is because a lot of people in the office are now working from home and slacking off, and it's showing. Rather than doing their jobs as if they were in the office, they just try to pass it on to me because I'm the nice guy who comes to work every day and does a very good job. You should know that this is a really good career path. The CEO of the company I'm with has had this same executive assistant for I don't even know how long, across multiple companies that he's run. You folks can end up with some real clout. Just look at Donna on Suits, lol. Yep, be good at a job like this, and you'll always have a job working for that person. OP is doing the right thing by realizing who she needs to please at this job. Agreed. The girl in the same position, but at my company, is now essentially the big boss's right-hand woman. She will have very good references for our industry if she eventually decides to leave. Not the a-hole. I live by a saying, not my circus, not my monkey. I like the, I don't know and don't care enough to ask. Not my pig, not my farm, not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Hey, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I had a boss who would tell me she wanted things done in a way, and as soon as I did it, she changed her mind over and over again. This went on for years, driving me crazy. Finally, I transferred out, feeling sorry for whoever got my gig. It was very much easier working for someone who knew what they wanted. Posted by user Rice Consistent, titled, "Am I the a-hole for changing my swimsuit after feeling uncomfortable at a pool party, and then embarrassing people when I was asked about it?" This happened on Memorial Day. I'm a 22-year-old female. A family friend/neighbor has a large backyard that they love to throw parties in. My family is pretty close with them and usually goes whenever there's a party. If I'm busy with something, my parents don't care if I miss these events, but if I don't have any plans, they make me go with them and my younger siblings. Over the past 2 or so years, a couple of my dad's friends or adults in the neighborhood have been sorta creepy to me at these events. They sometimes make remarks about why I don't have a boyfriend and how they find it strange. Maybe it's not that weird, but it kinda creeps me out. Or if I go grab a beer, they try to draw out conversations about me being old enough to drink now, or asking me about my alcohol preferences. On the day of this party, I was already having a crappy day since I fought with my mum earlier, and I was sort of on edge at the party. I was hanging out in the pool, and I went to get out because I had to pee. I felt eyes on me, like some of the men at the party were treating me like I was that girl in the pool scene in Fast Times. I had glasses on, and ended up making eye contact with the house owner, who seemed to space out with his eyes resting on me as I walked inside the house. After using the restroom and feeling very uncomfortable, I walked back home and changed out of the bikini I was wearing and put on the ugly one piece I had to wear in high school swim classes. I arrived back at the pool and swam when my mum called me over to her and a group of neighbors and adults at the party. She asked me why I left and put on another swimsuit. I said something like, I was feeling uncomfortable with all these men who were dad's age staring at me. An awkward silence filled the air, and my mum looked at me signaling, "Are you fudging kidding me?" I asked her why she was looking at me that way, and she apologized to the adults and I walked away. After sitting in the hot tub for a bit, my dad came up to me and sort of whispered that he heard what I said, and it made a lot of people uncomfortable, and maybe I should apologize. I barked at my dad loudly, and at this point, people were looking at me. I yelled for him to tell Mr. Last Name to stop being a fudging pervert then. At this point, the man who I name-dropked's wife started yelling at me, telling me I'm a little punk and I need more respect for my elders, and how disgusting it was of me to accuse people of that. I just told her, don't worry, your husband wasn't the only one who was staring, and I'm very uncomfortable that the neighbors who knew me since I was a toddler now ogle over me in my swimsuit. One adult man there spoke up and said he was sorry, that he wasn't looking at me, but if I thought he was, he's very sorry for the misunderstanding. I told my parents I was going home. My parents returned an hour or so later and promptly bitched me out for embarrassing them and making the entire party awkward. Did I go too far? Alright, so I'm going to say the normal response here is not the a-hole, but I think she went a tad bit over the top in that reaction. That's just my opinion, you're welcome to disagree with that. I'm going to say that everyone sucks here as a result, but only her a little bit, I don't blame her for her actions there. I can completely understand being creeped out by being in a bathing suit and being checked out constantly by people you grew up with. That seems, makes me want to crawl out of my skin. I think OP just went a little bit too far, starting a huge argument at the party. I think there's a time and place for it. I'm sure, it's understandable that you did it. I think it was a tad bit out of line though. That's not to say that don't do it. Sometimes it's good to be called out on these things. Sometimes it's bad. I wasn't there, I'm just getting your account. But I still think that everyone sucks here. Not the a-hole. The ones who need to apologize were the ones ogling you. Seriously, can't some parents be understanding if their daughter feels uncomfortable? Oh, no, see, you don't understand. While children can easily be taught not to stare, adult males cannot. It is theorized that as they age, they grow an entitlement gene that society always telling them that they're great and it's perfectly okay to be pervy. Sarcasm. This is exactly why girls have dress codes at school. Because how dare we teach the boys how not to stare? It might teach them how to not become creepy old men later in life. Sometimes the women are worse. I love wearing short shorts in the summer, and the wives always glare me down like how dare I entice their men to stare at me. It's disgusting. I'm pretty sure this is going to get me yelled at on here, but I have a different perspective. I've been both the young pretty girl in the bikini that got oogled a lot, and am now a middle-aged wife, so I feel like I have a wide variety of understanding on the experience. If those men were leering and harassing you, you absolutely have the right to be ticked off and can call it out. Men can be gross, and it's not fair for you to have to put up with that, and in that case, your parents should back you up. But before you mess with someone's life by calling them out by name in front of everybody, you better be absolutely sure that that's what they're doing. It sounds like, by your own admission, there was room for question about whether they were actually leering at you or not. By calling out one person in particular by name in a public place, you made a very serious accusation. And trust me, you absolutely humiliated and hurt his wife. Now, before everyone jumps down my throat for saying I'm enabling perverts, I'm doing nothing of the sort. I'm your prototypical liberal feminist and have fought for years for women to have the right to exist without being harassed. I'm just saying that I think sometimes we're too quick to jump on the bandwagon of terrible accusations that can ruin people's lives. And because of that, many legitimate claims are undermined and go ignored. Based purely on OP's information above, finding these middle-aged men sorta creepy may not justify the damage that OP caused to this man and his wife. If there's more to the story, I will happily admit I'm wrong in this case. I think we need more information before lauding OP, as everybody on here seems to be doing. I wrote this on Twitter, but I'll say it again. I'm having trouble discerning in my mind when I was younger in a swimsuit. I sure thought there were eyes on me, but I don't know if there were or it was my self-consciousness. To expand on that, sprinkle in a hint of my own narcissism. If OP was 100% sure they were oogling, then she was in the right. But the conversations themselves seem harmless. Without knowing the facts, this is a hard one to vote for. OP did compare herself to Phoebe Cates. Yeah, that Fast Times reference alone makes me feel like just maybe this post was completely one-sided. Maybe. That one got me too. Sometimes guys are really creepy and stare and are inappropriate, and sometimes women think more highly of themselves than others do. Am I the a-hole for being okay with cheating unless it's in my own relationship? I'll make this short and sweet. I'm dating somebody now, and I would never cheat on them, and I'd hope for and expect them to never cheat on me. We got in an argument earlier because I admitted that before I met him, I didn't see a problem with me being the other woman, because quite frankly, they weren't my relationships, and if somebody expressed interest in me, I felt like it was okay because I'm not cheating on and breaking trust with a partner. I'm just living out a fantasy or kink, along with the man I'm sleeping with who is as well. My boyfriend's point of view is that cheating in any form by all parties is wrong, and he doesn't know if he can trust that I won't cheat on him because I've openly admitted to being the other woman. The point of view is that I love him and I would never want to hurt him in that way, and it wasn't my fault that men in other relationships lied to their partners, and it's not my fault that they wanted to do things with me. I will admit that it can be morally questionable to be a homewrecker, but I feel like the blame should be on the person actually in the relationship, not the person who was chosen. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for being okay with other people's cheating? Yes, you're the a-hole for that. It's very much shunned in our society. It's not a socially acceptable thing to do. You will lose a lot of friends and a lot of relationships with people for holding this opinion. You're the a-hole. Funny you wouldn't want it done to you, but you have no problem being a catalyst for extreme emotional turmoil in someone else's relationship. I don't agree with OP, but I kinda get where she's coming from. The cheater should take 1000% responsibility for cheating on their significant other, rather than the other woman/man, because the cheater is directly lying and being unfaithful in their own relationship with significant other. The cheater's actions is the catalyst, and not the action of the other man/woman. I think OP is simply saying that she does not feel as though she has betrayed anyone for being the other woman, and thus does not feel obligated or responsible. However, OP's lack of remorse or guilt, I personally can't relate, but I do get her perspective. Don't think there's a good way of wording her view on this without sounding like an a-hole. Edit, in response to the comments and OP, should she be responsible? No. Is it morally questionable? Yes. The key here is responsibility versus morality. Obviously she's a big a-hole on the morality side, but there's an argument to be had whether she deserves to take responsibility. Not much of an argument in my opinion though. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole as well as a hypocrite. So if your significant other cheats on you with a family member/friend, then according to your logic, you'll still have a good relationship with them, as it wasn't their fault your significant other showed interest in them? OP, you're the a-hole. Like many have said, it takes two to tango, being that other person makes you just as guilty. I don't blame your boyfriend. You said you're fine with being the homewrecker. It brings paranoia. If I had a partner who had a history of being with the other woman, I wouldn't trust them. Listen, OP, in your logic, you are restrained to only participate in cheating when it seems best for you or when you're single, and you expect it to have no repercussions since you're just the person they cheated on with. Not everybody, including your boyfriend, shares that logic. When they see that you've actively participated in it, they not only see you as a hypocrite, but also a serial cheater, and I agree with this logic. I don't know how you can save this relationship if your boyfriend doesn't see and accept your logic, and don't force him to, but yeah, you're the a-hole. It's not great, but I don't think the blame is 50-50. A mistress hasn't made a commitment and isn't breaking both moral and legal vows. Both suck, but it's definitely like an 80-20 split who sucks more. Posted by Deleted, titled, Am I the a-hole for not explaining straight away about how I lost my leg? I am male and I'm 24 years old. In the summer of 2016, I was driving pretty late at night. There wasn't anybody around, so I was enjoying the peace and quiet. Then, out of nowhere, this speeding car hit me, and I remember hearing a loud screech and seeing black. The next thing I remember is waking up in hospital, and I'm told I was in a horrific car crash. Basically, another driver had been drunk driving and was speeding and slammed straight into the driver's side of my car. My lower body was crushed, and I had broken all the major bones of my lower right leg beyond repair, and that my leg had been immediately amputated from the knee whilst I was unconscious. I also had breaks in other parts of me, open bleeding wounds, and even some burned wounds as part of the car had been leaking and caught fire. All in all, I was pretty lucky to be alive, as I should have died. Anyway, I had a long recovery. I was in hospital for months and also learned to walk again with a fake leg. When I eventually did heal, I was left with some noticeable burn scars, normal scars due to the crash, and quite glaringly a missing leg. The crash had a profound effect on me as I was only 20, and it destroyed my relationship with my then girlfriend and my mental health. It took me a long time to feel comfortable being an amputee, and I decided to get into the dating game. My friends helped me, and I have currently been talking to someone for the past few weeks, and we've been able to meet a couple of times. She knows I'm missing a leg, but I never explained why, as I didn't really know her and it was an insanely personal thing to open up about. I finally told her what happened to me last night, and explained that it's not something that's easy for me to talk about, and how I'm pretty scarred, both physically and mentally, from it. I kinda thought she'd get it, but she got really angry with me. She said that I'm an a-hole as I clearly don't trust her enough to open up about my past to her, especially something as huge as the crash, as it's pretty visible I only have one leg. I tried to reason with her and say that it's only been a few weeks, but I just made things worse. I do really like her, and I think maybe I could have said something earlier so I can see why she felt a little hurt, but I also believe that sometimes huge things take time to come out, so am I the a-hole? I'm gonna go with a big ol' fat no. I don't see how you could be the a-hole for that. She's just a stuck-up personality for not accepting that. You will find many people in life that will be completely and 100% transparent with you and be like, thank you for telling me. I know that was a hard thing to open up about. I respect that. I hope that you're feeling better now that you've told me. They won't just straight away get angry at you for not telling them earlier. That is a disgustingly huge red flag. What? You didn't tell me about your horrendous car crash when we first met? How can I trust you? What else are you hiding from me? Is there a third leg down there, Sonny Jim? Grrr. Not the a-hole. It's only been a few weeks, and it's entirely up to you if and when you feel comfortable telling someone about it. She has really overreacted there. Also, I'm sorry about your crash, but I'm glad to hear you're getting through it. The driver got charged with DUI, dangerous driving, and charges related to the damages. Turns out he had a few DUIs before, so got a few years in jail and is still there. So at least the guy got charged. But thank you, I'm doing fine. Ugh, I won't lie, it makes my blood boil that even with a few DUIs, he apparently had a license and a vehicle, and it wasn't until you were nearly killed that he went to jail. I am so sorry for your loss because of his recklessness. However, I am glad that you're alive and recovering. Anyways, not the a-hole. As others said, you are not obligated to reveal details of a traumatic event until you feel comfortable doing so. Yeah, the law system is screwed. I have an acquaintance who was in a horrific car accident in Philadelphia a month ago or so. She and her fiancé were hit by a man who was under the influence of PCP and alcohol, going 95 miles per hour in a 45. Her fiancé died at the scene. She had to be cut out of the car. She was 5 months pregnant, she lost her baby, she lost her right leg. She had to have a hysterectomy so she could never have children. Oh my god, this is terrible. This was her first child, and she was in a coma for 5 days. She posts on Facebook, and my heart breaks for her. I cannot imagine the pain she is going through, physical and emotional. As for the drunk driver, no injuries, nothing. Edit, she is only 30 years old. Unfortunately, drunkenness has a protective effect as far as injuries goes. One of my exes took his parents' car to a party in high school, got wasted, and totaled it. He staggered away without a scratch. He told them it was stolen, and everyone believed him. Not the a-hole. This is a red flag that she's making you feel guilty about something so personal. You have every right to wait to talk about your trauma. No one would ever think to pressure a vet about combat or a woman to talk about her incident after only a few dates. I get an emotionally controlling vibe from her. Get out before anyone gets hurt. To be honest, I'm gonna see how this plays out because I think that I need to talk to her again anyway. You don't owe her an apology at all. If anything, she should be apologizing to you for making you feel bad about something so personal. If she digs her heels in, please heed that as a really bad sign. Update. Thought it was clear enough, but the guy who hit me was drunk driving, not me. I was sober. Update 2. A lot of people have said this is a red flag, so to be honest, I'm considering asking to meet her again and explain that her behavior was now, I realize, not okay, and that I'm considering things between us. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. Update 3. I read a lot of comments basically saying I deserved better, and screw it. After a few hours of thinking, you're right. I asked to meet her again, and I plan on telling her to her face I don't see us going anywhere. Posted by user Not Fatty Faults, titled, Am I the a-hole? I refuse to take responsibility for my daughter's eating disorder, or disorders. Me, 48, daughter, 22, has a laundry list of issues growing up that continued into adulthood. She has severe low self-esteem. Every compliment you give her gets shot down by a self-deprecating joke. I'd be lying to say it's not embarrassing at times. I know I was not the best mum growing up, and in my defense, my husband left me when she was only 1 with 2 other children, and didn't show up until they were adults. It was stressful in every way, but I made sure they had the essentials: shelter, running water, clothes, heat, and food. I have blurted out things to my children in the heat of the moment. I've called my daughter a cow and a fat ass once or twice in her childhood. Again, at least twice I've done this. It was not an everyday thing. My daughter showed weird habits with food throughout childhood. She would hide food in her bedroom, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and she'd be eating while crying. Certain days, she would overeat, then the next day refuse to eat. She started bulimia around 14? She started therapy at 19. Recently, her therapist thought it would be beneficial if I joined one of their Zoom sessions to discuss certain things. I was adamant, seeing I knew right away it was going to be daughter blaming me for every problem, and she assured me it wasn't. Obviously that wasn't the case. She mentioned the comments I made in the past and said she thinks this triggered her habits. Her therapist didn't defend me. At one point, I was sick of the blame game. I said very gently, neither of my 2 children have eating disorders. To say I'm the primary reason she has disorders is unfair. She is using me as a scapegoat instead of addressing the real issue, and if she continues to blame me for her issues, she would have disowned me when she could have. Since her attitude is impacting me so heavily, perhaps I need to distance myself from her. I ended the meeting and have not spoken to her since. I intend to speak to her soon, but hope, if not, to expect an apology. I need everything possible for my children as a single parent. I am by no means a perfect parent, but all 3 are alive and semi-healthy. I think this is another case of the OP being in denial and very heavily down in the deeps of denial, and even a therapist hasn't been able to help them in this situation. They're definitely the a-hole in this situation, and I think they know that. I just think they don't want to come to grips with reality, and it's really sad to see the effect it's having on their family. You're the a-hole. A therapist is not there to defend you. A therapist is there to allow their patient to talk about the issue. If you were invited, it was because the issue needed to be discussed in an open environment with someone who knows professionally how to handle this. You failed. You blew up and essentially told your daughter you do not care that you impacted her and triggered a disorder. You do not deserve an apology, and you should not hope or expect one. You are the one who is in the wrong here. This is probably a repeating pattern. Daughter tries to talk to mother about ways she's hurting her. Mother blows up and says nothing is her fault. Walks away and washes her hands of any wrongdoing. Rinse and repeat. You're the a-hole. It's a sad and real pattern with narcissistic, abusive, or negligent parents. It's awful to see. You're the a-hole. On what planet are you not? You were a crap parent by your own admission. You said hurtful things to your daughter that stuck with her to this day. Good lord, you suck. She keeps stressing how she did the bare minimum, plus verbal abuse, like she deserves a freaking pat on the back or something. Look, I provided all the legal essentials. You know, the ones that I need to provide or the government will take my kids away. The literal lowest bar. Who cares if I have a child who has struggled with eating disorders, and probably other mental issues for almost a decade? I kept the heat on, so it cannot possibly be my fault. Posted by user, Am I the a-hole sexist tradition? Titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to contest a will? I'm probably the a-hole, but hey, let's see what the internet people think. My father passed away during New Year's Day. It's been pretty rough, but I'm doing much better now. I have a younger brother and an older sister. My father owns about 1,000 acres worth of land in Texas. When my brother and I were teens, my sister was in college. She got outed as gay to my dad, and it didn't go down that good. He eventually disowned her. A couple of years later, he tried to reach out to my sister, which she, understandably, refused. Flash forward 20 years. I am married and have a kid. My sister is also married, but they have no kids. My brother moved to Jamaica and got involved in a religion/cult there. Since the only kid my father has regular contact with is me, he decided to give me the vast amount of his wealth, namely his land. Most of his other assets went to my brother, and a single-family heirloom went to my sister. My sister and my brother want to contest the will. If we all agreed to do it, then we can divide the land equitably. I don't see how I'm benefiting at all from this decision. I want my future kids to be secure. I have nothing to lose if I don't contest it. Also, I don't think I've talked to either of them in a couple of years. I'm obviously being called an a-hole by my siblings, so am I one? Am I the a-hole? Just because you can hoard wealth doesn't mean you should hoard wealth, especially from your siblings who you grew up with and I'm sure you had good relationships with, OP. What's wrong with you? Why are you using the excuse of your kids? It's obviously you that wants this. You don't care about your kids having it. You don't care about your siblings, do you? You suck. Edit. I've thought about this for a couple of days now. I've decided to not contest it after getting an attorney. Oh, I'm sure the attorney looked at it from a non-biased point of view. Plus, my siblings were being jerks to me for basically their entire lives, and they are still being huge jerks. I guess this is a natural consequence of karma. Edit 2. Just to pee her off, I'm going to offer her probably an acre of landlocked property. Thanks for all your judgments. You are a terrible person, OP. You're the a-hole. You wouldn't be losing anything at all. You'd be helping right the wrong of your sister being treated like crap by her own father for simply being who she is. Your brother effectively cut off contact with your dad because of his religious beliefs. Cults separate people from their families. It's part of what defines them as a cult. And that was probably very upsetting and painful for your dad. But your dad did the same thing to your sister because of his religious beliefs. That's conjecture, but tell me I'm wrong. You're the only one who had sustained contact with your intolerant father just because you're the only sibling whose lifestyle he didn't disagree with. You didn't earn anything here, and you have an opportunity to right years of wrongs committed upon your sister in particular. Also, your kids definitely didn't earn that land, so don't pretend you're more deserving of it on your behalf of your kids, or that you stand to lose anything at all by dividing it up. Your brother's situation makes this stickier. If he's truly part of a bona fide cult, there's a decent chance that anything of value willed to him will go to the cult. I don't know what you do about that. But your father was an a-hole to your sister in life and could have taken one final stab at making amends by including her in his will. Instead, he's chosen to be an a-hole to her even in death. You have a chance to do right by your sister, be the hero or be the a-hole. All of this, he's benefiting from other people's homophobia and doesn't seem to have the problem with that. Seems to be the same thing everyone else thinks. It's okay to benefit from something as long as you didn't do it. If your father disinherited her because she married a black person, it'd be okay to benefit from that racism, right? I don't know, people. There's a lot of a-holes on this subreddit. Not the a-hole. It wouldn't be in your or your children's best interest to contest the will that already leaves the biggest asset to you. I don't see how acting in OP's self-interest is an argument for them not being the a-hole. I don't know about the brother, not enough detail, but it does seem here that at least the sister got screwed for coming out and didn't really deserve to lose her share. So yeah, no alternative will result in more money for OP, but I get the feeling they are more interested in the money versus doing the right thing. You're the a-hole. What share? The father tried to apologize and the sister rejected him. That is her right, and no one would blame her for it. But it seems a bit scheming and entitled to expect to come reap her share of his wealth afterward. No reconciliation, no bequeathing, can't reject him in life and expect to be treated the same as the son who stayed. To be fair, it says he reached out, not explicitly that he tried to apologize. He could have been one of those parents who wanted to be involved again without ever admitting wrongdoing. Even OP says it's understandable that she refused. Posted by user Have Truck Will Travel, titled, Am I the a-hole for not helping my coworker move after I showed up and no one was ready for the move and they started to belittle me over my life choices? This happened this morning. I agreed to help a work buddy to move since I had a large truck and a trailer that I could use. The plan was simple. I would show up at around 6:30 to 6:45 a.m. and we would start with the large stuff, couch, beds, etc., and file any open space left with the packing boxes. So while not everything had to be packed and ready to go, they were still living in the house, so you need access to some stuff. I told them to have at least 70 to 80% of it ready, and his wife and kids can pack the rest for when we were traveling to the new place about 50 minutes away. He agreed to pay for the gas, breakfast, and lunch. I agreed to be the driver and mover. Well, I show up at 6:38 on and give them a call. No pickup. So I go up to the room, which is on the 3rd floor, knock on the door, and no answer. So I try the phone again, and after checking that I have the right address, I don't want to wake up the wrong person, I try the door again. One of the kids opens up, and I'm relieved that I have the right place. I enter and find that a small pile of boxes on the wall and a large amount of junk just tossed around the room. I ask to make sure that everything is packed. I get some attitude from her about how she has kids and I don't, so I need to shut up about it. Buddy shows up and joins her, and I get about a dozen or so bingos about my life choices and how I need to help them out some more since they have kids and I don't. And I can start with buying everyone breakfast and helping pack the boxes. After about 20 minutes of this, I just left and went home. I have about 100 missed calls and texts right now from them, and have no real motivation to return to help them out. Edit, I started to read through the texts after cooling off a bit, and reading your replies. I have gotten half apologies, blaming a hangover, and that they were joking about breakfast, and asking what are they going to do without my help. So far, I have not responded, but I think my only response should be is, rent a truck. Edit 2, thank you everyone. This is going to be my last response for the day. Did I mention I got up at 4 a.m. to get everything ready and to leave at 6 a.m. to be there on time? So I'm going to get ready for bed soon. A few updates. I did call Mai and his superior and gave him a dry rundown on what happened. that they were not ready to move, and to ask if they needed to come in for that day since I was only 5 minutes away. I texted the other 2 managers to make sure as well. I am a jack of all trades guy and can cover for everyone, but if they think I am busy with Buddy's move, they won't call me. And I am always happy for some overtime cash when I'm already in the area. I picked up some Hardee's and went home and killed some digital ninjas with the all clear response. It seems that they're using the kids' phones to text and harass me as well. I think they're the kids' numbers since they're not in my caller ID. All I see is the phone number and provider. I've muted all the conversations, but I'm keeping a record of them. Also, Buddy was given a 3-day weekend just for this move, so I will not know more until Tuesday. I'm actually covering his shift for this on Monday. Normally, I only work 4 12 to 16 hours days a week. Whoa, those are 16-hour days, 4 in a row. I know that's normal for some people, but I would die. So I guess in this situation, OP is definitely not the a-hole. I don't get where these parents are coming from with their excuses to just abuse someone that's taken time out of their day to come help them so early in the morning. You are literal trailer trash, disgusting trash for saying that to OP. And he deserves, to just walk straight out, go home. Alright, you're not going to be helpful? See you later. This was a favor to you guys, screw you. Bye. Sometimes you just have to take the high road and just say, alright, your loss. Not the a-hole. They were getting free labor and a moving truck and decided to not be ready and then demand you buy them breakfast? Girl, bye. This, screw them. Dude, they were getting free labor plus a truck, saving hundreds of dollars, and had the balls to treat him like that. Ungrateful people are so cringy, and OP did the right thing by leaving and saving the text messages. They were just using him anyways, it looks like. With the $60 tip I gave my movers, it cost just over $2,000 to move my 2-bedroom apartment into my house. That's trucks and about 6 hours of labor. Obviously, they may not have paid for actual movers. I lived alone, so it literally was my only option. But I would have loved to get a truck and another person to help for free instead of spending $1,000. Absolutely not the a-hole. Lesson I learned as a kid that moved a lot: never pee off the guy with the truck, especially if you aren't paying them. They're already being inconvenienced by you just assuming they can help you because they have a truck. I would have charged at least $30 an hour for hard labor like that. Moved 7 years ago. Everything was packed in even weight boxes with destinations, furniture was disassembled to be easy to carry, the cellar storage had been moved before by car. 10 o'clock I was already loading boxes in the truck, 8 people showed up. By 10:30 everything was in the truck, by 10:45 we were at the new place. By 11:15 I went for a second round for a few things that did not fit. In the meantime, the other 6 people unpacked some stuff and assembled some furniture. I had filled the fridge with cookies, sandwiches, soda, beer, candy, and snacks. By 12 o'clock, we were sitting around the table having a merry time. We did a bit more unpacking and assembled a bed, and then headed to the pub where I bought everyone food and beer. It would probably have been cheaper to just hire a moving company, but now I got to meet my best friends and treat them for about 2 hours of work. And I wanted to read that one because that is a prime example of how to treat people doing free work for you. Posted by user General Gravicious, titled, "Am I the a-hole for living with my boyfriend and not wanting to pay rent?" So I've been with this guy for just over a year, and we live in different cities. So usually I just go see him every other week. But since now it's the summer, and I don't have to go to university for a while, I've basically been living with him for the past month or so, rarely going back home. Yesterday, he asked me if I could pay some of the rent, to which I replied that I already pay rent for my own place and that his rent is really expensive and I could never afford it. The flat is really nice, brand new and in a prime location. We exchanged some more words, then he just got upset and we haven't really talked ever since. I'd like to point out that his rent is 4 times my own, that I'm a student and I don't have a job. He has a full-time job, but he has been struggling a bit financially lately due to shutting down his Airbnb business because of the pandemic. I'd also like to add that I do pay my share of groceries and other necessities. This is just about rent. Edit. Since I've been asked to edit this in, it was at my boyfriend's request that I unofficially moved in with him. He definitely does not think I'm overstaying my welcome, and while I'm fine with living at home and visiting every now and then, he'd rather I stayed at his place. Thanks. You're the a-hole. It sucks that it's so expensive, but I don't think it's unreasonable for him to want some help with rent temporarily if you were living there basically full-time and contributing to the wear and tear of the place and whatnot. Quite relevant to check the comments in this case. OP was convinced by the boyfriend to stay over and gets whined at if they want to stay at their own place. Boyfriend can't demand OP's presence, but also ask for rent if OP would just as well stay at their own place. Soft, you're the a-hole. Are you also not using water, gas, electricity, Wi-Fi? A small contribution will go a long way. Just because you're a student doesn't mean you can get off with a few things. Not the a-hole. As long as you're not living there officially and you pay your share of groceries, it would be unreasonable to ask you to pay double rent. I'm surprised I'm not seeing more answers like this. FTR, not the a-hole. OP is still paying rent and utilities at their own place. If OP's partner wants them to stay there, there's no need to pay double rent. If OP gave up their own place and moved in, it would be different. But as the situation stands, it's not OP's problem that their partner is having a hard time paying their own rent. If you need additional income help, get a roommate. G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee, back at it again with another episode of r/AmiTheA. Now if you love this video, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, a like on the video, and get ready for some bloody good content.